Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's hybrid New York City Council hearing of the Committee on General Welfare. Everyone, please place all electronic devices to vibrate or silent mode. If you wish to submit testimony, you may send it to testimony@council.nyc.gov. Again, that's testimony@council.nyc.gov. Thank you, everyone, for your cooperation. Chair Ayala, we are ready to begin.
Thank you and good morning, and my apologies for being late. My father's sister, beloved sister, passed away this morning just as I was leaving the house, and as you can understand, I needed to stay with him for a few minutes to make sure that he was okay. So for those of you that pray, please say a prayer for him because he's really going through it right now. Having said that, good morning and thank you for being here today. My name is Diana Ayala and I am the Deputy Speaker of the New York City Council and the Chair of the General Welfare Committee. I'd like to begin by thanking everyone for joining us this morning. Today, our committee is here to hold a hearing entitled Oversight, Longstanding New York City Shelter Intake Issues and the Recent Increase in Asylum Seekers. On July 19, 2022, Mayor Eric Adams held a press conference to express concerns about the sharp increase in asylum seekers from Latin America and other regions, and reported 2,800 of these individuals had entered the New York City shelter system. Similarly, on June 18, 2022, the Washington Post reported a similar influx of immigrant families arriving by bus from Texas and Arizona, stating the unexpected surge of people represented a significant issue that exceeded the city's available resources. Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser contended that the governors of Texas and Arizona were exploiting and harming vulnerable people fleeing desperate and dangerous situations in their home countries for political gain. On July 21, 2022, Mayor Adams, accompanied by Department of Social Services Commissioner Gary Jenkins and the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs Commissioner Manuel Castro, held a news conference to address the significant uptick in our families with shelter census over the past couple of months, which has been driven in part by the increased immigrant population seeking services in the New York City shelter system. Commissioner Jenkins stated that New York City is committed to meeting our legal and moral obligation to provide shelter to all who need it, regardless of background or immigration status, and called on government partners to recognize the external pressures being placed upon the shelter system. The news conference on July 21st was held in response to reports from multiple New York City mainstream news organizations and legal advocates who had interviewed migrant families about delays that they had experienced at the Department of Homeless Prevention Assistance and Temporary Housing PATH intake centers. Some of these delays resulted in overnight stays in PATH offices prior to shelter placement, and Commissioner Jenkins confirmed that 4 families were not placed in conditional placement within the time frame specified by the right to shelter laws. Unquestionably, the recent increase in unhoused immigrants seeking asylum has highlighted existing challenges within our shelter system. As Mayor Adams called for federal assistance to help New York City fulfill its legal obligation to provide housing to those in need, advocates pointed out existing challenges to timely shelter placement, including staffing issues and a complex application process that often results in placement delays. Moreover, once applicants have been approved for placement, some landlords have refused to take their housing vouchers, which in turn keeps temporary shelters full. Finally, establishing new housing options for this cohort often elicits fierce opposition from the community. Today, we're here not to cast blame, but rather to ask questions that will help to elicit answers and correct misinformation so that we can better support our shelter system and provide services for those who need it when they need it the most. We are thankfully a nation and a city of immigrants, and proud to live in a multicultural and diverse community comprised of over 8.3 million fellow New Yorkers who speak over 200 languages and choose to call our city home. We will always embrace immigrants. I want to thank the administration, the advocates, legal service providers, volunteers, and individuals with lived experience who have taken the time to join us here today. At today's hearing, the committee will seek an overview of the city's plan in response to the recent rise in asylum seekers to New York City shelters and how we may better serve these individuals in need of social service assistance. At this time, I'd like to acknowledge my colleagues who are here today, Councilmembers Gabang, Ong, Brewer, Hanif, and Ressler. Finally, I would like to thank the committee staff who worked to prepare this hearing: Aminta Killawan, Senior Counsel; Chrissy Dwyer, Legislative Policy Analyst; Julia Haramis, Senior Finance Analyst; Rose Martinez, Assistant Deputy Director; Nicholas Montalbano, Senior Data Scientist; and my staff, Michelle Cruz, Deputy Chief of Staff. I will now turn it over to our committee counsel, Aminta Killawan, to administer the oath to our witnesses.
We're now going to call on members of the administration: Commissioner Gary Jenkins of the Department of Social Services, Commissioner Manuel Castro of the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs, Tom Tortorici, Executive Director of Legal and Support at Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs, Jocelyn Carter, Administrator at the Department of Social Services, and Commissioner Zach Iskal of the Office of Emergency Management. Can you all please raise your right hand? Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before the committee, and to respond honestly to council member questions? Thank you. Commissioner Jenkins, you may begin when ready.
Good morning. Deputy Speaker, before I begin my testimony, my sincere condolences to you and your family, and our prayers are definitely with you, and please reach out and let us know if you need anything. So good morning. I want to thank the General Welfare Committee and Deputy Speaker Ayala for holding today's hearing. We are here to update the committee on the ongoing work that our agencies are doing each day to support asylum seekers arriving in New York City in unprecedented numbers. My name is Gary P. Jenkins, and I am the Commissioner of the New York City Department of Social Services, which is made up of the Human Resources Administration, HRA, and Department of Homeless Services, DHS. I am also joined today by Commissioner Manuel Castro from the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs, Commissioner Zach Iskal of the New York City Office of Emergency Management, and DHS Administrator Jocelyn Carter. New York City has been and will continue to be a city of immigrants. We have, and under the Adams administration, will continue to welcome immigrants from every corner of the world and ensure that however they arrive in our city, they have the support they need to thrive in our neighborhoods. These are the same values that guide our work in supporting New Yorkers experiencing homelessness, values that prioritize care and compassion for our most vulnerable families and individuals. Our city is currently experiencing a substantial increase in the number of families and individuals seeking asylum through our southern border, many from Central and South America and other regions. These individuals and families are arriving at our city's shelter intake centers with little more than the clothing on their backs. These shelter intake centers include the Prevention Assistance and Temporary Housing Intake Center, better known as PATH, for families with children, located in the Bronx, our 30th Street Intake Center for single adults and adult families located in Manhattan, and for women's intake, the Franklin Women's Intake Center located in the Bronx, and Help Women's Shelter located in Brooklyn. As you all know, New York City is one of the few jurisdictions with a right to shelter, meaning that we are legally required to provide transitional housing for those seeking a place to stay, including the many asylum seekers being discussed here today. This means that we honor our legal and moral obligation and will turn no one away. As we begin our discussion on how the Adams administration is supporting asylum seekers that are coming to our city and seeking assistance from the shelter system, it is important to provide context on DSS, DHS, and homelessness in New York City. DHS is committed to preventing and addressing homelessness across our city. Our staff and providers employ many innovative strategies to help individuals who are in temporary shelter or are unsheltered to successfully transition to permanency. The mission of DHS is to prevent homelessness when possible, address unsheltered homelessness, provide safe temporary shelter, and connect New Yorkers experiencing homelessness to suitable housing. We carry out this mission with care and compassion for each client and their circumstances, and these values extend and apply to the vulnerable families and individuals seeking asylum in our city. As a right to shelter city, we remain committed to meeting our legal and moral mandates to provide temporary emergency shelter to all eligible New Yorkers. Our staff and providers also help these individuals access a variety of wraparound services to ensure a seamless transition back to independent living and stability. In several briefings by this administration, we have described a significant uptick in our families with children and single adult shelter census over the last few months. That uptick has been largely driven by an increase in migrant population seeking asylum. Our temporary housing services are available to all, regardless of immigration status. DHS and its contracted providers do not ask about documentation status and instead rely on self-reported information across our intake system. In early summer, DHS staff began noticing an uptick in asylum seekers during intake interviews. As the uptick in asylum seekers continued, DHS developed a strategy to more robustly identify these individuals while continuing to ensure their citizenship status was not disclosed. As of yesterday, August 8th, there are more than 4,000 asylum seekers who have presented themselves to our shelter intake system, which have been a driver of the approximately 10% increase in the DHS census since April. Approximately 100 people are applying at our intake sites per day. Asylum seekers are a mix of families with children, adult families, and single adults arriving and seeking shelter and security after a long and grueling journey to New York City from their homeland. These are unprecedented numbers, and I want to thank our staff, providers, and colleagues in government for stepping up and ensuring these families and individuals are welcomed into our system and provided with the same care and compassion we would have for any New Yorker experiencing homelessness. While challenges have arisen, our existing system is withstanding the many stresses placed upon it, and we are serving hundreds of individuals and families in need. Our DSS teams keep families and individuals fed, sheltered, and cared for, and most critically, provide a place for them to stop, rest, and begin to stabilize their lives. Asylum seekers are entering shelter through DHS existing intake facilities. For families with children, as mentioned earlier, this means the PATH Intake Center in the Bronx. Long-standing PATH rules require that if a family presents at PATH Intake Center by 10 p.m., we are required to place that family in conditional placement by 4 a.m. As reported by the Mayor, Commissioner Castro, and myself in mid-July, 4 families were not assigned conditional placement by the required time. In these cases, the 3 families were placed by 6:45 a.m. and the remaining family by 11 a.m. We are accountable for this shortfall and have taken steps to ensure this does not happen again. However, it must be emphasized that no families have been sitting for days in our intake center waiting for placement. We look forward to continuing to support the needs of this vulnerable community, and we ask that you join us in our efforts in calling for adequate resources to meet the needs of this moment. At the city level, we are leaving no stone unturned to support the unprecedented number of asylum seekers arriving each day. Just last week, the city announced a declaration of emergency for asylee services and shelter, which will allow us to rapidly procure services specifically designed to support this community in need. This is an interagency, all hands-on-deck effort where we will be tapping into our nonprofit providers to ensure asylum seekers have access to wraparound services, including legal support, healthcare, and education. Moreover, we are continuing to work with our federal and state partners to access much-needed financial resources to meet the needs of this rising cost of this emergency. This landscape highlights our shelter capacity needs, a topic that I, along with my team, have testified about many times before. Given this moment of need and the fact that we must meet our legal and moral mandates to provide shelter, we must expand and be creative in our expansion to temporarily house those seeking asylum in our city. Because we must provide shelter to all who seek it, we are looking across the 5 boroughs to place asylum seekers in facilities where they can find stabilization and the resources needed to acclimate to New York City and eventually move out of shelter. As the mayor has said, we must continuously find new locations for emergency temporary housing. And we are looking for assistance from this committee as well as the council at large to find locations within your districts to shelter asylum seekers. We are all in this together, and we need your help to find and secure necessary capacity to house these vulnerable population. In closing, the DSS-DHS shelter system has done its job even as this unprecedented surge has stretched its resources. We continue to be a lighthouse that lights the way for so many vulnerable individuals and families who come to New York City seeking nothing but safety. As I've said before, DSS-DHS often acts as the safety net of the safety net. And we are proud of the work that our staff have done to bring stability and safety to the thousands of individuals arriving at our doors. We are a city of immigrants, and we look forward to continuing New York's tradition of welcoming newcomers with open arms. We thank you for the opportunity to testify today, and we welcome any questions you may have. Commissioner Castro?
Thank you, Commissioner Jenkins, and thank you.
Mike.
Thank you, Commissioner Jenkins, and thank you, Chair Ayala and members of the committee for holding this hearing. My name is Manuel Castro, and I am the Commissioner of the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs. I am joined here by Tom Tortorici, Executive Director of Legal and Support Initiatives at our office. Let me begin by emphasizing that my colleague, Commissioner Jenkins, and I are in full support with Mayor Adams's message to the nation, to our state, and to our city, and particularly to those seeking refuge in our city. New York is a city of immigrants and will always welcome newly arrived immigrants with open arms. Once you're here, you're a New Yorker, and the city has your back. I want to also start by highlighting the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs mission, as outlined in the Charter. The Charter explicitly notes that immigrant New Yorkers make up a large percentage of the city's total population. 3 million New Yorkers, or almost 40% of the population, are immigrants, and 60% of New Yorkers are immigrants or children of immigrants. Because of this, the well-being of the city and of all New Yorkers depends on the willingness of immigrant New Yorkers to engage with city government. It is in this context that the Office of Immigrant Affairs is working collaboratively with city agencies, including with my colleague Commissioner Gary Jenkins and the Department of Social Services, to ensure that newly arrived asylum seekers and immigrant families are welcomed. I will begin by explaining how we got here and why we are seeing an influx of asylum seekers in our city. First, a large influx of asylum seekers and immigrant families coming into the United States is nothing new. Whether it is the millions of immigrants from Europe sailing to the US during the 1800s and 1900s, or immigrants from Latin America crossing the US-Mexico border during the 1990s, like myself and my family. And most recently, the thousands of Haitians and Ukrainian immigrants landing in our shores. We have seen this phenomenon before. In fiscal year 2021, U.S. Customs and Border Protection reported 1.7 million border encounters. In fiscal year 2022, more than 2 million people have been encountered at the border through June. Encounter means that immigration authorities are apprehending people crossing the border or asylees presenting themselves at border points of entry. Large numbers of asylum seekers and migrants will continue to enter the United States, particularly with the end of inhumane and arbitrary Trump-era policies like the Migration Protection Protocols or the so-called Remain in Mexico policy in Title 42. It is estimated that approximately 6,000 to 18,000 migrants per day will be allowed to come to the United States to seek asylum and other legal relief that they are entitled to under U.S. and international law. Historically, immigrants have some connection in the United States to help them find their way to their destination, including in New York City. Even those who did not have any family or immediate employment opportunities in the United States, like those we are currently seeing coming from Central and South America, the Caribbean, Africa, Eastern Europe, and Asian countries, naturally found ethnic communities in different cities to determine their place of settlement. However, what is new now is the systematic diversion of asylum seekers and immigrants to New York City by external forces, including by the disgusting, cruel, and cowardly actions of Texas Governor Greg Abbott, who is forcibly busing asylum seekers to the city. Whereas before, immigrants decided their own destination when they are released by Customs and Border Protection or Immigration Custom Enforcement, we are now seeing that a large volume of official immigration documentation, like the notices to appear or the G56 form calling letters, have New York City shelters or legal service provider locations as the individual's official address. Some documentation even has random office buildings or incorrect New York City addresses. How these addresses came to be included in the documents is yet to be fully determined. We continue to ask federal authorities to provide us with clarity on this matter. However, after speaking with legal service providers, other cities, and community groups, review of public reporting, and my direct experience speaking with asylum seekers, we are getting a better understanding of the situation. We are hearing that travel is being facilitated by an array of sources, including border and Washington, D.C. non-governmental organizations, as well as by the states of Texas and Arizona, who are transporting people in buses with the purpose of sending them to New York City, even when the asylum seekers did not want to come here because they have family in other cities and other states. For example, we met families who came to New York City on a bus from Texas, even though their desired destinations were Maryland and Oregon. Additionally, it is plausible that asylum seekers are sharing these addresses through informal channels like WhatsApp and word of mouth. From the beginning, I have been working with my colleague, Commissioner Gary Jenkins, so asylum seekers are welcome to our city. Asylum seekers have the right to be in the United States while they seek humanitarian protection. Let me repeat that. Asylum seekers have a right to be in the United States while they seek humanitarian protection. Thus, we are working to ensure the city is communicating with them in their preferred language as required by local law 30, have access to free legal advice through the city-funded immigration service providers, as well as health services through our NYC Cares program, which recently, upon our advocacy, eliminated the 6-month residency eligibility requirement. Under the leadership of Mayor Eric Adams and Deputy Mayor Ann Williams-Isom, we are working to further address the emergency needs with a service center dedicated to asylum seekers to effectively respond to the needs of this community. More work needs to be done, for sure. However, and we look forward to working with the City Council, state and federal partners to secure the needed resources so we can provide the necessary support for our new neighbors, as well as to address the root of the problem that has diverted hundreds, thousands of asylum seekers from their families and communities. We thank you for the opportunity to testify today, and we welcome any questions that you may have.
Thank you. I guess that my first question is, you're absolutely right. Asylum seekers have been a part of New York City's history for many generations, so that part of it is not new. However, 4,000 people don't just show up within the course of a couple of days. I would like to better understand what exactly was the timeline in which where we started to see that the influx was a little bit higher than normal.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I'll just say that, yes, certainly asylum seekers have been part of the history of New York's newly arrived immigrant population. However, we began to notice a surge in asylum seekers because they began to arrive at our emergency shelter system. So I'll defer to Commissioner Jenkins on that experience. But certainly, as I said in my testimony, this was a surge in large part because Governor of Texas, as he has admitted, began to bus and send people to the region. And we have been working closely with community groups in Texas, in DC, and New York to track that. And over the last, I would say 6 weeks, we've began to really notice the surge. I'll defer to Commissioner Jenkins on the rest.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. In DHS, we began to notice an uptick in May of 2022. The staff started reporting that they started to recognize that folks were coming from out of the country and arriving at our PATH center located in the Bronx. And at that time, that's when we started really evaluating and assessing the amount of folks that were coming in, and that was for our families with children. And then the single adults, it started in June. We started recognizing that more individual asylum seekers started showing up at our single adults and adult families, and they started showing up in July. So from May through July, we started to see an influx of asylum seekers coming to New York City, entering our shelter system.
The emergency declaration was issued last week. What did the administration do, if anything, to prepare for the potential inundation when the numbers of persons arriving at the intake began to rise above the normal levels?
So thank you for that question, Deputy Speaker. So the emergency declaration, if I'm answering your question correctly, is going to give us the ability to procure in a more efficient manner. We will be able to work with our providers, and they can start delivering services immediately before that contract is registered. And I also want to publicly thank the Comptroller for really partnering and being supportive in that emergency declaration and signing off and being with us on that.
Yeah, and the Deputy Speaker for being one of the first to open in her district, but is it?
And absolutely the Deputy Speaker, and appreciate your ongoing partnership and cooperation.
Absolutely. I think that this is an all hands on deck situation, and it requires us to work together. But similarly, the city was aware that the eviction moratorium was coming to an end. How are we gauging what the number of people is that are asylum seekers versus New Yorkers who are possibly facing eviction while we're still in the midst of this pandemic that won't go away?
Yes, Deputy Speaker. So we are closely monitoring who enter our system as a result of an eviction proceeding. According to our records, and we watch it closely, not only 1% of folks entering our shelter system is a result of an eviction proceeding.
1%? Okay.
1%.
The census is up by 5,000 from last year, same time last year.
Right, and again, the census is around 50,000, but as we mentioned earlier, approximately 4,000 individuals into our system that are identified as asylum seekers.
So the press conference announcing the 2,800 asylum seekers was what, 2 weeks ago?
That was 2 or 3 weeks ago?
So since then, we've now increased to an additional 1,200 individuals?
It's in total over 4,000 individuals.
That's a very rapid rate of growth.
Yes, it is, and that's why this is so concerning for us. And we, looking towards our federal and our state partners and the city council as a whole to really address this emergency head on. And we're not going to turn away our asylum seekers. We're going to, address them with open arms. But we recognize that we definitely need resources and financial resources to address this population.
What is the specific ask of the federal government in terms of funding?
So we are in conversation with our federal oversight, and we are assessing along with OMB what is the actual ask will be, and we can get back to you.
Okay. Okay. I had a question on it, like just flew out of my mind. But, okay, so this is what I was gonna ask. Before, so one of the greater concerns that I think, many people share is the vacancy rate at the shelters. I think it was at 1%. Most people would argue that safely we should be at around 3% or above in order to accommodate a surge like this. We were at 1%. So as families were trickling in, I mean, because this is it's a very fast volume, right, of growth, how quickly were we able to place them, and how did you pivot if we didn't have the beds?
So as we know, historically, in summer months when school has concluded, we see an uptick in our census for families with children. So we recognize at that point in time, you're correct, we had a 1% vacancy rate, and we was concerned and we was watching it closely. The influx of asylum seekers definitely put a strain, and that's where we had to pivot to open up emergency hotels. To date, we've opened up 11 because, as we all are aware, New York City is a right to shelter city.
That's right.
And we're legally and morally mandated to have temporary housing to those who present to us. And we're making sure that we work along with you. Deputy Speaker, you said thank you very much. You was the first that said yes when we needed to open up an emergency hotel. And we continue to ensure that we have capacity for those that reach us. The emergency declaration is going to even further afford us the ability to move quickly to accommodate our capacity concerns.
Yeah, and I can appreciate the need to open the hotels. Obviously, we're not proponents of, sheltering families, especially families with children in hotels, but under the circumstances, we understand that, this is necessary. Of the 4,000 individuals families that were placed, how many of those were children, school-age children?
Give me 1 second. I know I have it. You have it, Joss?
Sorry, but this mask is making my glasses.
I know I have the information here, Deputy Speaker. If you can just bear with me for a second. Thank you. Yep, thank you. So in total, we have 16,766 that's in our shelter system. 0 to 5 is 7,903. And the ages of 6 to 17 is approximately 8,800.
Yeah. Do we know how many of the 8,800 are newly arrived?
We can get back to you on that information, Deputy Speaker.
Okay. Now, does Moya have a dedicated office or a space within PATH to easily connect families that are arriving to services?
At PATH?
Yes.
No, they don't have a dedicated office, but again, as Commissioner Castro spoke about earlier, we don't work in silos, not in the Adams administration. We're in constant communication as far as how the asylum seekers are coming in, where they're going. So we're in constant, our teams, communication, so we can be prepared when those individuals present at our door, if they present at our door.
I guess that my concern is that if we're placing families under an emergency declaration, right? We're placing them wherever the real estate is available. Are we then are the social workers then making a referral to Moya? Is Moya, being proactive and engaging with these families? And in what way? We saw when the Garifuna community, was growing in the South Bronx, that families had to travel from the South Bronx all the way to Federal Plaza, oftentimes walking because they didn't have the transportation necessary to get here. And so I'm trying to figure out, like, in what ways we're facilitating these conversations and these connections so that we're not necessarily, relying on a referral-based system.
Yes, Deputy Speaker, as Commissioner Jenkins said, we've been working hand in hand from the beginning, and not just DSS, MOIA, but other city agencies to make sure that the immediate emergency needs of the asylum seekers are met, which are particularly emergency shelter, but as we've seen, as the buses arrive, people arrive hungry, thirsty, and often sick. And so those are the immediate needs. We've developed a continuum of care model that addresses this. Asylum seekers have many particular needs. Specifically, the asylum seeking immigration process is quite rigorous. Often they come with notices to appear at immigration court that we are working closely with our legal service providers to meet the demand and increase the capacity to be able to serve this population. But initially, we are helping often feed, clothe, and of course shelter the asylum seekers as they arrive in the last several weeks. And we are very close to opening a service center to be able to provide and centralize all the services that they may need. We've learned quite a lot from previous experiences. As you mentioned, the Garifuna experience, but also unaccompanied children and other refugees and asylum seekers, most recently Ukrainians and Haitians. So we're come together to really come up with a process that makes sense, and that we don't have people going around the city without the support that they need.
I really appreciate that, but I would like that to happen as expeditiously as possible. People have been arriving since May. I think we had kind of a little bit of a heads up. I don't think that we had a heads up to the degree that, the numbers that we're seeing, but enough time to come up with a plan. And I really would argue that an office or some sort of, visibility at PATH directly is something that should be happening. Is food provided at PATH for families that are coming in? Food, water?
Yes, Deputy Speaker. Food and water is definitely provided. I've witnessed, along with Administrator Carter, on several occasions when we visited the location. And food is given as much as they want. So it's not, it's not rationed out as far as one meal. If a family asks for 3, then they get 3. If they ask for 4, they get 4. We have appropriate food and water for individuals. We also relaxed our rules. If folks want to bring food from outside, they're more than welcome to bring in food from outside as well. When we recently visited, it was in place where, because we do serve food to families, outside food was not allowed. We changed that immediately once we recognized that was in place, because some families want outside food and they should have the affordability, just like you and I, to eat what they want to eat.
Yeah. I mean, we've seen lines of individuals lined up outside of PATH for the last few weeks. It's been really hot out. We're in the middle of a serious heat wave. What precautions has the DHS taken to ensure that families are not out in the sun for too many, for too long? Obviously, a few minutes is too long these days, but are there any other community partners that in that community that allow for space for families to wait until their process? What does that look like? I don't know what is the length of time that a person, is expected to stand online?
Administrator Carter.
Thank you for the question, Deputy Speaker. So what we have done at Family Intake is that we have opened several floors to move families through, so they have opportunities to be in different spaces to wait rather than the floors that we had before, because we recognize that we need to make sure that there's space for them. And in addition, I just want to add on to what the Commissioner talked about with food. When families show up, we want to make sure to meet their basic needs. We also need to make sure we give clothing. One thing we see sometimes, they come with only their clothes on their back, and they need to be not only fed, but to get clothes and to get the basic needs met. So we're also doing that at the front door.
Okay, go ahead. I want to recognize a couple of members that have since joined us: Councilmember Hudson, Stevens, Williams, Riley, and Botcher. Okay. All right, so going back to the hotel issue, so families with children, okay. So as of December 2021, DHS ended the problematic practice of using the hotel shelters to house homeless families with children. A recent article in the New York Times indicated that the vacancy rate in the shelters for families was well below the 1%, which we discussed. What is the current vacancy rate for shelters that house families with children, and what is DHS doing to address the need for more shelter capacity? I'm assuming that in addition to the emergency declaration, there must have been a plan.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. The vacancy rate is still below 1% for families with children. We are aggressively working with our providers, and again, want to thank the City Council body as a whole to continue being partnered with us as we look for additional emergency shelters. But our process of siting shelters throughout the 5 boroughs has not stopped. We recognize that we are a right to shelter city, and we need to provide shelter to those who present themselves to us. As the mayor has stated previously, we're looking for everyone to be a partner in this effort, recognizing that certain areas are oversaturated, but also focus on areas where there's undersaturation. And so we are looking across the city, asking our elected officials to please continue to be partner with us and identify locations where there's opportunities to create these shelters.
But the declaration allows you to bypass councilmatic input, right? Normally, the city would.
The declaration allows us to accelerate working with our providers so they can start providing services before the contract is registered.
Gotcha.
So we're really pleased again that the controller was a partner in that effort, and the deputy speaker
Yes.
supporting for us to get that emergency declaration completed.
Okay. And these are just questions that we're asking because I really want to get a lot of this on record, and I want to clarify a lot of what has been said in the press. I understand that the situation is very sensitive, but the last time that the city violated the right to shelter law, the administration notified the Legal Aid Society. Why did this not happen this time?
So again, Deputy Speaker, as I said in my testimony, we fell short. We had an influx of individuals entering our shelter system, and our dedicated staff was working as fast as possible to address this unprecedented surge within our system. With those 4 families, we have now course correct. We are working with our IT department to improve technology at PATH and across our systems. We are closely monitoring the timeline when someone enters our location. Administrator Carter and myself receive a daily report identifying that the folks that arrived prior to 10 p.m. were conditionally placed by 4 a.m. We recognize that for those 4 families, we fell short. I'm going to leave it at we fell short. And that's something that we're not proud of, but that's something that we address going forward, and we are ensuring that that would not happen again.
I appreciate that. And what is the timeline then for family? Are we moving families? I want to better understand. So families coming to PATH, obviously we have to place them. We put them, wherever beds are available. Are they then transferred to other facilities, or is that their permanent place of residence for whatever time is needed to really assess what the needs of that particular family are?
Appreciate that question. I'm going to start and have Administrator Carter chime in. When a family presents at PATH, we place them into a conditional placement because it gives us the opportunity to have the assessment, because we want to treat each family as an individual family with their own unique needs. We want to ensure that they're placed in the appropriate setting. If it's DV, we recognize that there are certain boroughs or neighborhoods that we cannot place those families in. So we want to have that true full assessment to meet the families where they are. So they do a conditional placement as we're going and understanding their eligibility as far as documentation. And then from there, they are placed into a permanent, and I say permanent, it's a temporary setting until we can move those families and individuals to a place of stability.
And is there consideration to families that maybe have family members that live in New York City, and maybe, let's say, I'm a new arrival, I have, an aunt that lives in Queens, and I would love to be, near my aunt, but I can't live with the aunt. Is there any consideration? I mean, I understand that because of the emergency and the lack of beds, to fulfill our mandated obligation, it may be tricky to do that. But is that a conversation that is being had?
That is definitely a conversation, and that's even prior to the surge of asylum seekers. That's our protocol. We work with the individuals, we work with their family or friends to see if there's another avenue for them to secure housing. So if they know a friend, we speak with the friend at, the staff speak with the friend at PATH to see if that individual or that family can stay with them. So that conversation is ongoing and engaging. But in the end, if we're not successful or we can't find a place for those individuals to go, as the city, as I stated earlier, we're legally mandated to place those families into temporary shelter.
I do, Commissioner. I think one of the things that we do make sure that happens once a family is placed conditionally, if they are eligible, they're remaining in the same space. We're not moving them. And we do look at their family members that they could be diverted to, because we think, we do know that shelter is the last emergency space for them. We want families to be together out of shelter.
So considering that the vacancy rate was up at 1%, right, and now we have this emergency declaration, if a New Yorker, a family that resides in New York, or a New Yorker who's facing eviction goes into PATH, do they now fall into this new system of newly identified shelter settings?
Okay.
Like, is that family going to be placed in a hotel?
So we released, and part of the emergency declaration is allowing us to move through the process quicker to have providers open shelters for the society population. Our regular process of procuring shelters will remain. So we are hoping to open a setting for asylees will be separate from our process that we have now. So those who are coming into a system, a regular New Yorker, families come to us will not be going into this emergency asylee system that we are standing up. So we did release the RFPs. There was a vendor conference that happens to kind of explain what that is. And so once we stand that up, that's where asylees will be going to, not into a regular system. But our process will remain the same that we have now for folks who are applying that are not asylum seekers.
Absolutely. Now, PATH has a process by which, in order to place families, couples, the couple has to be married or have
Domestic partnership.
a domestic partnership. Is that something that's being waived, or are families being separated that cannot produce marriage licenses or have elected not to get married?
So for a regular process, and continue to be the same process, we do place conditionally for 10 days and give opportunity for couples to get domestic partnership if they don't have that. So that's our regular process. But what I talked about a few minutes ago, in our emergency system that we're setting up, we'll be looking at ways that we can adjust what our processes are to really look at these families who are coming, because we do know that it's going to be some ways that we will have to look at these families in a different way.
I really wish that you guys would revisit that policy. I don't want to get married, and I don't know that I want to go into PATH and have you force me to marry someone.
Councilmember, if I could add on, we do also have rules and regulations that the state is our oversight, and we would have those discussions. As Administrator Carter said, it's a unique population, and these families are coming over, like I said in my testimony, with nothing but the clothes on their back. So we want to give them the opportunity and work with them to get the documentation, but also have a conversation with our state oversight to see how those rules can be adjusted and relaxed. And I think I do believe that you want to be married.
I don't, and I would resent you highly if you forced me. But is DHS or is the city Moya maybe communicating with Texas and Arizona at this point? Because we've been hearing from families that had an appointment, maybe to see, immigration on, their appointment, and I guess to start the process, right, of seeking the asylum, and yet no one, their paperwork was misplaced, addresses were wrong. Who's tracking this information, and is there any relationship between what you're doing here in New York City and what's happening at the border?
We're in constant communication with our federal partners who are at the border. However, as I stated earlier, the state of Texas is not cooperating. They've essentially weaponized the situation. We've learned that the bus company that they're working with has a non-disclosure agreement that does not allow them to communicate with the city of New York, really demonstrating how disruptive Governor Abbott is trying to be in this situation. As I've said before, he's using human beings as political pawns, which is why we are condemning them and their actions. Certainly, we'd love to be in more coordination and know exactly how many people will be arriving in New York City to provide the services that they need, as well as to make sure that they are arriving at their immigration court hearings. I'd also like to take the opportunity to really applaud the work of our frontline staff at DSS. They've done tremendous work in supporting asylum seekers. They've been very flexible, and Commissioner Jenkins and I are in constant communication to troubleshoot anything that might come up that we hear from advocates and community groups, and we'll continue to do so because this population is coming here with a great amount of needs, and we have to push back on what Governor Abbott is doing. New Yorkers won't be scared or intimidated, and we are showing how asylum seekers should be welcomed in our country.
My concern is just that we lose people and that, they're off the grid and now we have no idea what state they ended up in and, whether or not they're connecting with someone at that state to ensure that they're not missing appointments that would then jeopardize their ability to stay, in the United States. That's really concerning to me. I'm gonna just be quiet for a little while and allow my colleagues, because I have a lot of colleagues here who have a bunch of questions, and I will come back around in a few minutes. Okay,
Deputy
we're doing
Speaker.
a 5-minute clock for council members?
Deputy
Did you
Speaker,
wanna add something?
if I may,
Yes.
just add on what Commissioner Castro said in regards to our frontline staff. I'll be remiss if I did not acknowledge the hard work across all of our agencies. They have always rise to the occasion to get the job done. It has not stopped with the asylum seekers coming to New York City. They embrace and have open arms with them and really engage with them as well. So I just really want to give a shout out and big kudos to our frontline staff that's out there every day and night doing the work on behalf of New Yorkers, regardless of immigration status.
Thank you. I concur, and I would add you to the equation, and thank you for your honesty in our communications. You've always been, very upfront about the situation, and even before it made headlines, you were very honest about the number of people and what was happening and what your approach was in trying to address it as quickly and as humanely as possible. It is a very unique situation, and I encourage, my colleagues to really work with the administration to try to figure out how we can all be helpful. This is not, one of those times where we can afford to, to take a political stand, right, on a humanitarian crisis. With that, we have 5 minutes for council members. We're starting with Councilmember Hanif.
Thank you so much, Deputy Speaker Ayala, and thank you, Commissioners Jenkins and Castro. I'm Councilmember Shahana Hanif, also the chair of the Immigration Committee. And I applaud the work that you're doing, and thank you so much, Commissioner Jenkins, for giving a huge shout out to the frontline staff. That's really important to acknowledge. How is the city coordinating with nonprofit, faith-based, and mutual aid groups in southern border states?
So we are working closely with community-based organizations here in New York City who have close ties with groups in southern bordering states, as well as national coalitions of groups that have been trying to address, in fact, what Deputy Speaker mentioned, losing people along the journey, which is critical in making sure people don't go without appearing to their court hearings here in New York or elsewhere. So again, what Governor Abbott is doing is disruptive and it's harming people, and we've all had to come together to respond to this emergency, and coalitions of people have really come together, including volunteers and mutual aid groups who have not done this work before to support people arriving in DC, for instance, who then want to come to New York City.
Are you able to provide some specific names of organizations so that we can continue to give them shout outs and make sure that folks are supporting to help them expand their capacity?
Yes, well, we work very closely with Grannies Respond, which is a network of volunteers that have been welcoming asylum seekers at bus stations.
Could you repeat the name one more time?
Grannies Respond.
Okay.
And this is an organization that has been doing this work for many years, specifically with asylum seekers. And they have a network of volunteer organizations in across the country, really. And they've just done a tremendous amount of work. They have a chapter here in New York. What's the chapter called? TLC. The Team TLC, who've been fabulous, fantastic. They've been welcoming people here at Port Authority with us, but they've been doing this work for many years. Of course, I'll give a shout out to Catholic Charities, who will testify later today. They have been working with asylum seekers on both sides of the border, really, but in Texas and here in New York. And there are many others, and I'd love to give them all a shout out, but it's a long list. And I do also want to say that they've been tremendous in identifying information that has been hard to come by because of non-cooperation by Texas and other states.
Thank you. Could you walk us through the city's presence at the Port Authority bus terminal when it's known that a bus from Texas will arrive? How does the city learn about the bus, and then which city agencies are directly present, which nonprofit partners, and then services offered, including, is IDNYC a part of the package here?
Yes, as I said in my testimony, asylum seekers are arriving in a variety of ways. Many asylum seekers have been taking commercial public buses and arriving at the many drop-off locations, not just Port Authority, but as you know, Megabus and Bolt and others have drop-off locations at street corners, often not, in bus depots, right? And so the other complexity of that logistics is that some buses arrive without asylum seekers, and some do, and often late in the evening or at night, so it's hard to know when exactly people are arriving, because they are connecting to these commercial buses in DC and coming here. We're in touch with these bus companies, their attendants at these drop-off locations. That's one of the ways we've come to learn that there is a surge and people are arriving, and they've been helpful in connecting people to our shelter system. So that was the initial way we began to support asylum seekers arriving to New York. Officially, Governor Abbott announced that a bus directly from Texas was arriving this past Friday. Grannies Response and their group of volunteers alerted us of this the night before. Again, Governor Abbott and Texas did not warn us about this, even though the bus had started their journey Wednesday and was to arrive Friday. Again, the time it's difficult even for the volunteers to know exactly. And then another bus arrived Sunday. And we just learned that a bus is arriving today, and then tomorrow we'll be receiving 2 buses. So as you can see, these buses, it's a fleet of buses at this point, leaving Texas and will be arriving here in New York on a consistent basis, we assume. And so we're working closely, specifically with Grannies Response and folks who have already been doing this work. But we're pulling together a coalition of groups who have experience in working with asylum seekers, and also legal service providers and volunteers who've approached us in collaborating. Of course, we want to do this in a very organized way. Port Authority, as you know, is managed by the state, and this bus company that was contracted by the state of Texas is not even licensed to use Port Authority. The Port Authority is allowing them to use the bus station because of the people that they're transporting. And we're working closely with them in the state to make sure that we have the space to welcome them and connect them to the emergency services, which are, again, food, clothes, and some medical emergencies. We've had 3 people that arrived with need of medication, to 2 young people who didn't have insulin for 3 days on their journey and needed medical attention. And of course, people arrived dehydrated and hungry. So those are the immediate needs. And we are triaging, right? Some people need to connect to the emergency shelters. Others need to arrive to family acquaintances in the city. And unfortunately, others don't even know why they're in New York. As I mentioned, a family was transported here who intended to go to Wisconsin to meet with relatives there, and had to, we've had to help them get there. And another person this past Friday wanted to go to Portland, Oregon. And once he arrived here, he's like, well, how do I get there from here? And we had to explain that it was on the other side of the country, and so therefore had to stay in our emergency shelter system.
And could you just speak to the ID/NYC piece here? Are folks applying upon arrival, or how are we connecting them to the municipal ID? And that's a wrap for me. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your question. ID/NYC, we were already in the process of working with our homeless individuals so they can have the availability of the ID/NYC card. So we are dovetailing this asylum seekers into that process, looking at the rules, looking at the documentation that's needed for these individuals, understanding that, as I said earlier, they're coming with only the clothes on their back. So how, as a city, work with them to obtain the appropriate documentation so then they can obtain the ID/NYC card. So we're also keenly focused on this population, but as a whole, all of our residents that's in our shelter system, to make sure that ID/NYC card is available to them to apply for.
And just for awareness, when an asylum seeker enters the country, their documentation, their paperwork is taken away from them. And they're giving, of course, documents from the CBP, USCIS, which they carry with them, but we're unsure as to whether they can use those to even fly right across the country, like this individual who needs to get to Portland. The federal government is considering providing an ID at the border, in lieu of the documents that they take away, but that is a serious concern, obviously.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Caban?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Commissioners. I actually just want to follow up very briefly on a question that my colleague asked, and you expanded upon, Commissioner. Knowing that many folks are having their IDs confiscated by ICE at the border, will DHS find families ineligible for shelter if they don't have their ID with them?
We work with those families, those individuals, to obtain their documentation. So they have a 10-day conditional to get documentation. We're obligated to work with those individuals to obtain that documentation. If they're found ineligible, I'm going to be really clear with this. They are not displaced and said you have to leave shelter. They are ineligible for the city to receive reimbursement from the state. So again, we continue to work with those individuals to get the necessary documentation that's needed for them to be eligible and for us to get appropriate reimbursement.
So in those 10 days, they are in shelter?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I wanted to ask a little bit about singles intake, particularly. We're hearing that folks have seen many single individuals who go to singles intake be sent to inappropriate congregate shelters, despite the fact that they have serious health conditions or need private rooms or reasonable accommodations based on COVID or other health issues. And so I'd like to know what percentage of people at singles intake are being assisted with reasonable accommodation requests.
Thank you for that question. Single adults who come to our intake center are assessed for their needs. And so there is a reasonable accommodation process that they do go through, and that is through our OLA system. And we do have individuals at intake, at all 3 intake centers, actually 4 intake centers that do assessments of their needs on site. And if there's a reasonable accommodation that needs to happen, that can happen. If
Sure.
there is, once they're placed in a congregate setting and they do need an individual room and there's a reasonable accommodation that's needed, that happens. If you show up at intake and there's an
Well,
obvious
and I
and
apologize,
apparent...
because I know we all have limited time. I understand the process. I think my question is, like, what's the percentage of people at singles intake that are being assisted with these requests?
I'll have to come back to you with the percentage.
Okay, thank you. And I appreciate your patience with me. Like I said, I
No,
just want to make sure
got it.
my questions get answered. There's obviously a significant need for these single rooms to accommodate people so they don't have to stay in crowded congregate shelters, especially following the closure of thousands of single rooms last year and the closure of more single rooms in the first half of this year. Is DHS planning to open additional single rooms?
So under the mayor's historical investment of over $700 million, we are looking at our stabilization beds and safe havens across the city. Some of those are single, some are double, some are quads, and we are committed to making sure that we meet that requirement that the mayor placed upon us, and we're doing it, and we're working towards that each and every day. For the hotels, that the emergency hotels that we open, those are primarily single rooms to meet the surge. But again, working with the council as a whole, as we look to open up purpose-centered shelters across the city, we want to make sure that it's accommodating to the needs of our residents.
Thank you. And advocates have spoken to individuals at singles intake who are waiting so long for intake that they don't get sleep or bed assignments until the next day. Have y'all heard about situations where people wait overnight for intake and beyond that, like, what's the average time for intake and bed assignment, particularly at William, Franklin, and Bellevue?
Councilmember, we'll come back to you with the average time for single adults.
I'm sorry, I couldn't.
I said I'll come back to you. We'll come back to you with the average time for single adult placement.
Okay, thank you.
But I want to be clear. A person does not sleep overnight at any of our locations, particularly when I mention families with children. If they're in by 10 p.m., we're in agreement to place them conditionally by 4 a.m. For singles, we have capacity, and we place them into a setting.
So is it true that nobody is sleeping at Path anymore?
So just to be clear, it's not anymore. No one sleeps multiple nights at Path. Again, if they're in by 10 p.m., we place them by 4 a.m. If a person gets in after 11 or 12, because it's a 24-hour operation, they get in at 2 a.m., and we're working to place them into the appropriate setting. As they're sitting there, and I have observed, they may close their eyes because they're exhausted. Okay. And they, in a traumatic state of being homeless. One could perceive that, oh, you're sleeping at Path overnight. That's an incorrect characterization.
Okay. And I appreciate your answer. I just want to name, especially for the record, that is not what we're hearing from some families who are saying that this is what they're experiencing. I just one last quick question. How are you arriving at your estimate for the number of asylum seekers or recent immigrants in shelter? And again, thank you for taking my questions.
No problem. Thank you, Council Member. As I mentioned earlier, we asked those questions during the assessment to determine if there are asylum seekers. What we've done since then was actually go back and do a reconciliation to ensure that the ones that were identified as asylum seekers are actually asylum seekers. And that number, it was actually over what we accounted for. So we made sure, working with our providers, to say, who's in your system? Can you have that conversation with those individuals? It was confirmed, reconciled, that they are asylum seekers. So that's how we arrived at our number, to make sure that it was accurate.
Right. Thank you. And just to clarify the comment I had made, what we have been hearing is that folks have had to wait online so long at Path that they didn't get in until after 10 p.m., not because they weren't there on time, but just because of some of the process. So I'm looking forward to hearing on some of those follow-ups that y'all have committed to providing, and thank you again. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Brewer?
Thank you. My question is this. First of all, congratulations to your staff. I know they are working hard. So a few years ago, when I was borough president, I was at Maiden Lane at Catholic Charities, and there were families there from Venezuela. So my question on terms of the funding, since Abbott is doing his horrific, we know that, but you have had families here before who are asylum from Venezuela. So were you able to get funding for them? Did you try? This is not the first group of asylum seekers who have come to New York. So how are we handling, and what have we done in the past, if anything, to try to get federal funding? I met the families, so I know they were there.
Yes,
You weren't around, so.
I wasn't around, yes.
I was.
Yes. I was in, as you know.
Before your time,
I
but I'm
was-
just saying, what have we done? Do you have any sense of what the agencies have done to try to get funding in the past?
Yes, I would just say that asylum legal service providers and other community organizations we work with have done a tremendous amount of work since this search began. We fund many of the legal immigration services providers that work with asylum seekers, but what we're experiencing is a historic surge. No one planned for this, and we're working to build capacity and provide additional support to legal immigration service providers and other groups that are meeting the needs of asylum seekers. And I would say that community organizations in our boroughs are seeing as well an influx of people seeking support, not just with immigration services, but to find jobs and other services as well.
Okay.
So.
No, I'm just trying to say, was there any effort to get federal money in the past for the asylum seekers? You may not know the answer.
For the asylum seekers?
That's
Well,
what I'm saying, yeah.
It just, maybe this is a good time to pass it on to Tom Tortorici. An asylum seeker is not eligible for certain benefits until they are deemed asylees or refugees.
Right.
So let me pass this on to Tom to answer.
But I'm saying it's not new. These are not new situations.
Thank you, Commissioner, and thank you, Council Member. As Commissioner Jenkins described, the city is working with OMB to estimate the amount of funding that would be needed from the federal government for housing, but also for support and legal services. And there are certain programs that are federally funded, that provide very basic legal supports to asylum seekers and others in removal proceedings. But the city steps up and does its part, invests more than any other.
I'm not worried about the city. I'm trying to get more money.
We're actively working to estimate the extent of the ask.
Okay. Secondly, do we know what countries, because are the consul generals helping at all in any way, or is it politically untenable for them to do that?
Working with the consuls is sensitive, given the legal considerations of asylum seekers.
Okay.
However, could you please repeat your question, Council Member?
No, I'm just saying, I work with the consul generals as borough president, all 186 of them, and they were helpful. Now, maybe here this is not possible, given the political situation. So I was wondering what countries they're coming from, and if the consul generals, they all have money. I got a lot of money from those consul generals.
Sure.
So I'm just wondering if any of them are being helpful.
Sure. We probably heard a lot that Latin American asylum seekers are the majority, and that's true. We've seen people from everywhere, including Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, Mexico, Honduras, El
And
Salvador.
all those consul generals work together.
Yes.
I
So
go to all their meetings.
which is why Tom said we also work very closely with consul generals and their staff, but it's quite complex to do so with asylum seekers.
Okay.
So we're moving carefully. But I should say, and I want to continue to emphasize, in the past couple of months, I've been meeting with groups that work with asylum seekers from other parts of the world, particularly West Africa. Many of them are also arriving to Mexico and crossing over using the U.S.-Mexico border. We've also found asylum seekers from Russia and Russian-speaking countries who've done the same. Of course, Haiti and other countries, and they're making their way to New York. And so they need as much support as any asylum-seeking community.
Okay. The question, of course, is, and I worry because we need to help these individuals as much as possible. We also have to be concerned about the homeless who are here and their needs, and we have to make sure that there's people who are here and homeless don't feel that somebody else is getting better treatment. I'm just saying, I assume you're aware of that, but that's something that I would worry about. So I want to know how you're handling that. But in terms of things like eliminating the requirement that households stay in shelter for 90 days, figuring out about the city FEPS vouchers and the work requirement and so on. Are you going to figure out, are you planning to change some of those rules and regulations for these individuals? And of course, how are you going to work with DOE? I mean, how are you going to make more flexible if that's appropriate? But at the same time, if I was in a shelter system, I would say, why not? Why can't I get those kinds of supports also? So how are you handling all that?
So, Councilmember, thank you for those important questions, and we are working continuously. That has not stopped with our individuals who are in shelter. So I'm going to say older New Yorkers, not our new New Yorkers who are asylum seekers. That process has not stopped. As soon as a person enters our shelter system, we start that assessment of how do we get them to exit shelter into either subsidized or permanent housing. That has not stopped. We're working with, as you mentioned, City for HEPS, looking at the rules, looking at what barriers are in place, working with our Chief Housing Officer, Jessica Katz, to really, again, not work in silos as the mayor has directed us, but working with HPD, NYCHA, DHS, HRA, all of those housing agencies to look to say, let's take a fresh look as we're doing. What barriers do we have in place? What rules are not really rules, but something that has been in place for many, many years? We're addressing that process to remove those barriers, to make sure that process is more seamless and more efficient.
Okay, my time is out, but I'm just saying these rules have to be for everybody so that everybody feels that they are not being singled out and then there's no stigma. So I hope that some of the rules that do exist that make no sense, I know Jessica's working on it, I know how good she is, but we've had some time, it doesn't seem to me that they're changing fast enough. You've got to get rid of some of these barriers. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I know my time is out.
Thank you. And Councilmember, if I may just end, I know you mentioned that you have a lot of relationships and connections for resources. Definitely want to take you up on that offer and have a sit down with you and Commissioner Castro.
I mean, I think some of those consul generals may be slightly different than their country, and they do have money.
I heard you loud and clear.
You.
Councilmember Brewer has the money. Thank you, Councilmember Brewer. Councilmember Ung.
Good morning, and thank you both for testifying. I just have one quick question. In light of what's happening and the homeless crisis that we are facing, and to be a little bit forward-looking, is it sufficient that we only have one PATH intake center for families in the Bronx right now? Is it something that both agencies are looking into?
Thank you for that question, Council Member. We are evaluating our entire process. Been in office in this seat for 8 months is really having a good opportunity to look at opportunities. We recognize that we have one PATH office for families with children in the Bronx, recognizing also we're in a financial crisis. So in order to replicate, that's going to cost dollars. And we understand that the city as a whole, we're in a really tough financial position, as I know you are aware of. But again, that doesn't stop us from brainstorming and looking for opportunities of how we can serve New Yorkers in a more efficient and effective manner.
No, thank you for that response. I did have an opportunity to visit the PATH Intake Center in the Bronx, and it's good. I really do encourage you to look at, having a PATH Intake Center in other boroughs, also to serve the needs of, the different residents in the different boroughs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Ung. Councilmember Ressler.
Thank you, Chair Ayala. It's good to be here, and Commissioner Jenkins, Administrator Carter, and the many, many administration officials we have here today. Thank you all for coming and for your hard work, especially Commissioner Jenkins. I really appreciate your great partnership. I will ask, just for brevity in responses, because I'd like to ask as many questions as I can sneak in. So just off the bat, I think we can all agree that Greg Abbott is a world-class piece of you-know-what, and that every asylum seeker coming to New York City deserves care and resources and support. But I have to say I bring a healthy skepticism to the premise of the hearing and the approach that this administration has taken on this issue. So just first off, you mentioned that we're at a vacancy rate of about 1%. Do we have it in the family with children system, which is, I think we would all agree, far too low? Do we have a timeline to get back to the goal of a 5 or even 3% vacancy rate? Is there a plan in place that DSS is executing with a timeline associated for when we anticipate getting there?
Absolutely, council member, and we are, that work has not stopped as far as shelters in the pipeline that we need to build and create. And I also want to publicly thank you, council member, for always being a great partner as we look for various locations to open up these shelters and purpose-built shelters, because we know that's what's going to increase our vacancy rate so that we can have the affordability to place people that come to us in a time of need for temporary housing. So again, that hasn't stopped. We're still looking and working towards building additional shelters.
You know, we always see a spike in the family with children population during the summer months after the school year ends. And especially in light of the eviction moratorium being lifted, when we had gotten to record low populations with the family with children census, it's now spiking in a significant way. And I am, you know, the last time you were here, we were able to celebrate the fact that we had no families with children in clusters. We had no families with children in commercial hotels. Can you all affirm if that remains the case today?
As far as no
families with children in commercial hotels or clusters, that we are continuing to only rely on Tier 2 facilities for every family with children that's in the shelter system tonight?
No, council member. As a result of this emergency with asylum seekers, and I mentioned earlier in my testimony that we started seeing a surge in May. That started taking up our vacancy.
I just want to say it's very troubling to me that that we have families that are outside of the Tier 2 system. The data, though, is confusing at best. The city, the mayor has said that there are 4,000 asylum seekers that have presented themselves to DHS, but I believe over that same period, going back to May, we've seen approximately a 2,000 person increase in the DHS census. So how many of the people who have presented themselves are actually in shelter?
So over 4,000 individuals have presented themselves as asylum seekers that's in our system.
That are in your system. You're claiming that the 4,000 people that have presented themselves are currently tonight asylum seekers that are in the DHS system?
No, council member, let me explain. We have 4,000 individuals that presented themselves that we identify as asylum seekers. What's currently here today, and they're still in our system, I have to get back to you for that data.
Okay. I mean, the numbers that were in your testimony that 100 additional people are applying each day, I just want to clarify that doesn't just include asylum seekers, that's all people applying for shelter.
No, the 100 folks that present themselves, not apply, but present themselves to shelter, we're identifying as 100 per day as asylum seekers.
Okay.
Council member, can I just add, you'll hear from many.
No, my questions are just for DSS. I really appreciate it. I'm tight on time. Thank you. I don't mean to be rude. I'm just trying to be direct. I'm focused on the DHS system. Will the new asylum shelters be subject to the existing city and state regulations?
You want to answer that?
We are working with our state oversight to look at what we can, if we can make any adjustments to our current regulations that we follow now, Part 900 and Part 491. And so we are assessing that with our state oversight partners.
Okay. I want to strongly encourage that you all agree with OTDA to have these new facilities be subject to the existing regulations. And I'm very concerned that we continue to have families that we had reached an extraordinary victory in getting families only in Tier 2 facilities to now have kids outside of it, and for it to potentially not be subject to the OTDA regulations that we have in place is very concerning. And so I just want to say I really hope that you all figure that out the right way, and we will be monitoring as the General Welfare Committee and the Council.
If I may, I know you short on time, because it's 11 seconds.
I got a couple more questions I'm going to stick in if the chair
lets me.
I know
you are. You're Councilmember Wrestler, and I appreciate that. But we are working closely with the state as well. So Commissioner Teets is on board. He knows us very well.
Your former colleague and our dear friend, Dan Teets, I know is going to be looking out for immigrant families and for all families in our system, and I hope that they bring the necessary oversight. If I can, I was a little concerned by your answers to questions raised by Councilmember Caban earlier. There have been reports by the Legal Aid Society about families spending the night in PATH for the first time in 8 years. Could you provide a specific accounting of the number of children who arrived before 10 p.m. on any night this year and spend the night in PATH, and the number of children who arrived after 10 p.m. this year and spent the night in PATH?
Councilmember, let me get back to you on that and see if we can get that.
Those are numbers that they are clear violations of Callahan, and it's a serious problem and it's a serious concern. And I've limited my questions today only to family with children system because I'm very focused on the well-being of our children in shelter. The last thing I just want to say is to echo the question that the Councilmember Ung raised around the decentralization of PATH. I think that it is a wrong and inhumane thing that we require every homeless family to have to travel to the Bronx to apply for shelter. Many travel 7 times, 8 times, 10 times. We've seen and read about the experiences of families traveling 30 or 40 times. I would welcome in downtown Brooklyn, in the 33rd Council District, a PATH decentralization site. We have many, many hundreds of shelters in the city of New York. We can afford to have 3 or 4 or 5 intake facilities in each borough so that families can come to a more convenient location if they are in need of shelter. And I strongly support Councilmember Ung's legislation to that effect, and I think it would help us when we face challenges of increased intake, like we are today. And I have to say, it remains unclear to me whether the increase in the shelter census is being driven by the asylum seekers or whether the increase in the shelter census is being attributed to some people needing assistance who are coming from abroad. And I really hope that we can get clearer data to understand what's happening. My strong suspicion is that we are experiencing an increase in the family with children census as a result of the eviction moratorium ending and the regular spike that we see over the summer months, and we are pointing to the immigrant community that is growing in New York City and asylum seekers as the rationale, and I need a lot better data to believe it. So I look forward to continuing the conversation. As always, I really do appreciate your leadership, Commissioner Jenkins. I'm sorry for the tough questioning, but these are important issues and we need to get to the bottom of them.
No need for an apology, council member, because we're in this together, right? And these are individuals that deserve our attention. And as you know, I'm personally affected by this. This work is personal for me because I actually, as I stated before, my family lived in a shelter. So these are individuals that deserve our attention and deserve the tough questions that you're asking for us to respond to as an administration. And I know Mayor Adams has directed us that we do not work in silos, and we are transparent as possible. So look forward to working with you to get the answers to your questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Ressler. Councilmember Stevens, followed by Councilmember Hudson.
Good afternoon. How's everyone doing?
Good afternoon.
So I just have a couple quick questions. Do you have the data breakdown by borough of the population of asylum seekers that have come in? I think we said it was about 4,000. Do you have that broken down by borough?
Let me get back to you, council member. I know for the sites that we open, the 11 emergency sites for asylum seekers, is 4 in Manhattan, 3 in Queens, 2 in Brooklyn, and 2 in the Bronx.
And do you have it broken down by how many is populated in those different places?
We can get that to you.
Okay, thank you. That'll be
You're
great. Can you talk a little bit about what does the collaboration right now between DHS and DOE looks like? Because as we know, we have an influx of families and things like that, and we're going to have a lot of school-age children. What does that look like, and how are we preparing for that to be a smooth transition for these young people?
So we have our standard protocol in place with DOE, making sure that we have a strong relationship with them and for them to understand when we open up a new location, we let DOE know, we let them know the population for school-age children. There's a data that's shared with them. I actually just had a recent conversation with Chancellor Banks to say, we want to make sure come September that our children and within our system have the appropriate busing, know what school they're going to, broken down by the language that's spoken to ensure that the particular schools have that relationship and understand who's coming in so we can provide services to those school-age children.
Okay. I mean, I'm happy to hear that you guys are talking, but it's a little concerning, especially when we were just talking about cuts in the education system for the last couple of months, and then we're going to have an influx of young people flooding the schools. So I think we also need to be thinking about how is that going to translate for money and things like that as well.
Yep. If I may, Commissioner Isco would like to.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Council Member. So as Commissioner Castro mentioned, we're in the process of setting up a service center that will primarily be based for legal services, enrolling people in New York City healthcare, NYC Cares. In addition to that, we will have a DOE presence there to enroll families in the school system. And so we are closely coordinating with DOE around the service center that we're in the process of building.
And can I just say before Councilmember Ressler steps out, it's important for us to acknowledge the increase in asylum seekers arriving to New York, because we want to figure out the resources that they may need, particularly as they enroll in the education system. Many of the immigration service providers here are ready to testify about the surge in asylum seekers, and we've witnessed extremely long lines outside 26 Federal Plaza, and we need to ensure that the asylum seekers are, we are able to meet them where they are and have the services that they need.
Okay, thank you. I just have one more question. With the increased number of families and individuals in shelters over the past couple of months because of the pandemic, could you talk a little bit more about what is being done to address those issues on top of all of these things? Because, I think sometimes we forget that we have to walk and chew gum at the same time. And I would just love to hear about what that plan looks like, because, we already have an influx of homelessness in the city, and then we now have the asylum seekers. And so I feel like we've been talking about them as if they are not in the same situation, but we'd love to hear more about how are we handling both of these things increase, because we know over the last couple of months there's been a huge increase in the homeless population in New York City.
Thank you, Councilmember. We can't afford to not focus on all of our population that enter our system. So yes, the asylum seeker has placed some pressure on us in our census and our availability of vacancies. But we also recognize that I said earlier, our count is 50,000 individuals that's in our system. And we're working with those individuals each and every day to provide the services they need to exit shelter. And to exit shelter is really working with our various housing vouchers that they're eligible for, working with their mental health needs, working with their health, medical needs as well. And that doesn't stop. We can't afford not to pay attention to our most vulnerable New Yorkers. So that work continues as we also address the surge of asylum seekers. We're keenly focused on, as I mentioned earlier, our older New Yorkers that's been with us. We have to work with them to get them to exit shelter.
Just one more question. Could you talk a little bit about some of the mental health services that you guys are providing to families who are traveling at this rate for months to then be bused to New York City, and talk about some of the mental health services that you guys are providing? Because this is obviously a very traumatic experience for these individuals.
Yes, and we're seeing that as as we're meeting people arriving from these buses coming directly from Texas. We're working closely with the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene to make sure that they have the support that they need. They're being connected to these services at our homeless shelters, and I would say that early on in the year, we made a change to eliminate the 6-month residency eligibility requirement for NYC Cares for exactly the same reason. Haitian refugees, asylum seekers are arriving, so are Ukrainians. We want to make sure that the moment they arrive, they get the medical and the mental health support that they need. And I should say that many of these families, individuals have been in a journey that has lasted months, maybe even years. They're crossing the border and then they're being bused to New York, and it's devastating the conditions they're arriving.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Stevens. Councilmember Hudson, followed by Councilmember Riley.
Thank you, Chair Ayala. I just have a couple of quick questions. One is somewhat follow-up to Councilmember Caban's question earlier about identification, and I understand that there are requirements and that you are assisting families to the best of your ability, but is there a concerted effort to provide folks with ID NYC cards at all? And if so, how are you ensuring privacy is protected? And more specifically, how can we ensure that the privacy and any related data associated with these families and individuals is being secured and not shared and treated with the utmost care?
Thank you, Councilmember, for your question. Yes, we have a concerted effort to ensure that undocumented individuals have access to ID NYC card. We do not ask for any type of documentation that they are immigrants. We made sure that's across all city agencies. We do not ask that information because we know in the prior federal administration, they used that as a weapon against these vulnerable populations. So privacy is at the top of our list, but we also want to ensure that individuals have the photo identification card that they can utilize in New York City and avail themselves to all the benefits that come with having an ID NYC card.
Great, thank you.
And can I just add this?
Absolutely.
This is very much what we have. It's really important for us to be careful about the data we're collecting of immigrant populations, which makes it difficult for us to, count and collect data and assess the current situation. But we have to be committed to protecting immigrants from access to this data that might put them at risk, because of
course.
As Commissioner Jenkins said, the weaponizing of this data.
Yes, thank you. And then sort of separately, what steps is the administration taking to reduce the risk of the spread of infectious diseases like COVID-19 and monkeypox at the facilities where individuals and families are being housed?
So that's a standard protocol, council member. When one enters our system, we do provide a COVID test. And if needed for isolation, we provide isolation as well. So that's part of the medical assessment when one enters into our system.
Okay, but not just COVID, also monkeypox.
Yeah, and monkeypox, as you know, is rising.
It is, and particularly in congregate settings.
And we're working with DOHMH and H&H to identify for isolation for those individuals if they are indeed have monkeypox.
Great, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilmember Hudson. Councilmember Riley?
Thank you, Chair. Hello, Commissioner. How you doing today? Hello to everyone presenting today. Just to piggyback off of Councilmember Stevens, do we have a number out of the 4,000? How many of those asylum seekers are children?
Yep, Councilmember Riley, we'll get back to you on that question, as well in addition to Councilmember Stevens.
No problem. And being that school is starting within a month, I did hear that you guys are opening up service centers. Is there an approximate time that we're looking at these service centers to be open? Where will they be located? Will we be having one in each 5 boroughs? Is there any more information on that?
Actually, Commissioner.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Councilmember. So we're looking at opening up one service center. We're looking at doing that in the next 2 weeks, hopefully sooner. That service center will provide some core services, primarily legal services, enrollment in DOE facilities, and NYC Cares. We're then going to be primarily then referring people to community-based organizations for services in their communities. We believe that's the best model because that helps them matriculate into different communities. For what we're doing.
Thank you. And just lastly, I believe all my questions were asked, but I do agree with you, Commissioner. We do have to work together. I know with Fair Share, with the mayor and the administration's agenda, we do have to get more shelters open in communities. I know me and you had a meeting scheduled for yesterday and it was canceled. I don't know why, but I really want to make sure that we set up that meeting again because I believe 829 Tilden is coming into my district. And with communities like mine, I think we have to work earlier with them to kind of educate them on why we do need more shelters and that we're trying to bring fair share throughout New York City. And if we're going to have any of those conversations, and if it's going to be easier for council members like me and a lot of other council members in the northeast section of the Bronx, I think if we have these conversations earlier with our community members, how we could work together, I think it will be more beneficial for all of us moving forward.
Councilmember Ali, I totally agree, and I approach this work as in collaboration. So we definitely would get that meeting back on the calendar. I wasn't aware it was canceled, that we had something on the calendar yesterday. My team probably had me prepped for this hearing today.
No problem.
But absolutely want to sit down with you and collaborate and strategize. So thank you for that.
All right, thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Riley. Councilmember Bacha, followed by Councilmember Williams.
Hi, Commissioner Jenkins. How are you?
I'm doing well, Councilmember. How are you?
Good, thank you. This is not the committee that I'm on, but I came here today because I'm very concerned about this issue, and because, as you know, and as we've been discussing, there's 2 hotels in my district that are being used for emergency placement, one in Community Ward 4 with around 210 families, and one in Community Ward 5 with, it's going to be like 600 families, right? 600 people, yeah. And I'm concerned about the kids and the school placements this fall. And I'd love to get more specificity on some of the questions that were asked about the school placements. At one of my elementary schools, they're going to be getting about 30 new students from one of the emergency hotels. And I'm finding out in the last couple of days, and I'll be in touch with you about this because you've made it clear that you have an open door, and I really appreciate that. They've got about 30 kids coming, but they've really received no guidance and information other than the fact that they have the 30 kids coming. And apparently they don't know how many are English language learners. Could you tell us a little bit more specifically, how is that working? Who's in charge of communicating with the schools? And I think we definitely need to have a meeting with the schools, and I'll pull them together, and we need to sit down and make sure that they're prepared. But I'd love to get more information about how that's working.
I want to start and then pass it to Administrator Carter, Council Member. I want to say publicly as well, it's been a real pleasure working directly with you, working on the issues, addressing, to address in your district in particular, and want to make sure that our relationship continues to build from where it is today so we can bring the services that's necessary to New Yorkers who are placed in your district. So as I mentioned earlier with DOE, we have a robust relationship with them in regards to when we open up a new location, DOE is informed so they can start planning for those school-age children to ensure that they have seats, to ensure that the language spoken by the children are provided at the schools. I just spoke again recently with Chancellor Banks. We have a meeting on the calendar that's coming up for us to really flush out with the surge of asylum seekers that's coming in the locations to ensure that DOE is ready for them. Again, our protocol has not changed. We have a good relationship with DOE. Again, the mayor directed us not to work in silos, and that's not what we're doing. My team, along with Chancellor Banks' team, they meet on a regular basis. They have liaisons within our shelter system. They communicate with one another to ensure that the children, who's the main focus, receive the services in the direction that they need in order to be successful once school starts in September. I know you want to add anything?
Commissioner, you said most of what I was going to say.
Okay.
Thank you. But one of the things that we will do, council members, is to circle back to DOE because we are giving addresses through our feed, and our staff is communicating with DOE, and I know they're beginning to do webinars for our folks. Want to make sure that they're including the schools in that. So we'll circle back to you on that.
Thank you.
And can I just add, my office often works with schools to provide immigration support, and parent coordinators will certainly reach out to us to provide that.
Okay, thank you. I would like to be helpful with this, and I think we do need to pull together our principals and your offices and the DOE and really make sure that there's more coordination happening. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Councilmember. We'll follow up with DOE as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Boucher. Councilmember Williams?
Thanks, Chair Ayala. Hello, Commissioner Jenkins. How are you?
Hello, I'm well. How are you, Councilmember?
Good. And Commissioner Castro, sorry, I've not met you yet. So my questions are about the source of income unit. So as we all know, in addition to a very limited supply of affordable housing, rental assistance voucher holders persistently experience source of income discrimination. I'm sure, as you know, I was a huge champion of source of income discrimination funding, as well as all of my colleagues in the council. And so we know that the executive plan transferred 6 positions from HRA to move them to the city's Commission on Human Rights to bolster the source of income unit. And so just wanted to know, before the transfer, were the 6 positions at HRA filled or vacant?
I believe, and I know I want to make sure I speak correctly because I'm on the record. I believe 4 of the 6 were vacant and 2 were occupied, and we transferred the head count over to Commissioner Palmer.
Okay. So of the filled positions, were the staff themselves transferred to CCHR, or will new staff be hired?
I think that's a really good question for Commissioner Palmer.
Okay.
I know it's a competitive process, so if there are vacancies, then those staff members would apply for those positions if they wanted to go over to Commission of Human Rights.
Okay, and this is probably another question that's better for CCHR, but is HRA in any way coordinating with them? Do you have any thoughts and ideas on the future of this and how we could potentially address the problem? Because I think it's one of those things where if we can solve this, it can alleviate so much pressure on other people or in other spaces, because as you know, some people who currently hold vouchers are sitting in shelters. So do you have any idea, or is there any plans for coordination to really address this issue?
Absolutely. As I've said a number of times, Mayor Adams directed all agency heads not to work in silos. So in this particular instance, yes, we are working with Commissioner Palmer. When we hear something, we say something. We make referrals, and then Commissioner Palmer's team follows up appropriately. But we're like the first line that probably would hear about it if there's some type of source of income discrimination from our clients, and we follow up appropriately. So we have a good relationship with Commissioner Palmer. We expect that to continue. And again, we're mandated for it to continue because we know we're working on behalf of our shared clients.
So is it a specific process that's sort of institutionalized, or does it kind of happen ad hoc? So let's say a provider is working with a particular client that has a voucher, and the client goes to find an apartment, and they maybe explain to their caseworker that they were unable to find an apartment, and it's deemed it might be a discriminatory matter. And so is that then sent to CCHR? Like, I'm just trying to understand if it's like institutionalized or if it just kind of happens naturally. Like, is there any specific plan that HRA has in the pipe to really address the issue from their lens in addition to what's happening at CCHR?
So what I'm committed to do, Councilmember, is providing you with a roadmap of what that process looks like when a referral is made over to Human Rights, so we can have a more in-depth conversation along with Commissioner Palmer.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilmember Williams. We will have a second round. I believe that Councilmember Brewer has a question.
Thank you. 2 quick questions. One is, in the papers, it did state that some individuals going to 30th Street had said, no, I'm going to the streets, from the people who are seeking asylum. Do you have any sense of how many have done that? Are you able to match, number 1? And then number 2, on your vacancies. Every single agency has vacancies. I understand the mayor. We want to be full-time. Nobody wants to be full-time. The private sector is not full-time. So are you able to fill these vacancies? How many do you have? And how is it impacting your efforts? I don't know how honest you can be, because I know it's a politically challenging issue right now in this administration. I'm for more hybrid, because otherwise nobody's going to work for the city of New York.
Got it, Councilmember. I'm on the record, so I'm definitely always going to be honest in my response.
Okay.
The mayor has directed us that we are to return to office full-time, or if you have a reasonable accommodation. That's the directive that the mayor gave. I am a true civil servant, and I'm going to follow the directions of the mayor and support him in that effort. In regards to the vacancies, we are hiring our vacancies. The city as a whole is not exempt from the great resignations that's occurring across the country, not just private and not-for-profits, but city government as well. Folks are deciding to retire, move on to other positions, take other jobs in other cities. Can't stop that. But what we are doing and what we're committed to doing is making sure that we are aggressively doing our recruitment to get folks into jobs so we can continue to deliver the top-notch service that our New Yorkers deserve.
So how many vacancies do you have?
I can get back to you for HRA and DHS.
Okay.
We can circle back to you. 30th Street, like again, the staff that's there and I commend them, are very engaged and really trying to work with those individuals as they present themselves to let them know the benefits of coming into shelter and having a roof over their head. You know, to parrot the mayor, there's no dignity in living on the streets. We don't want anyone to live on the streets, and especially our asylum seekers who, as I said in my testimony, had this grueling trip from their homeland to New York City. Once they're here, we want to make sure that they get the services they provide so they can get back onto a road of stability.
Okay, so hopefully they're not on the streets. Obviously, the outreach workers will know that if there are, and hopefully, you know, all right, thank you. Another time to discuss all of this.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. Regarding the shortage of staff shortages at every city agency imaginable, how has that been impacting PATH, and how have you been able to pivot to ensure adequate staffing ratios?
So again, Deputy Speaker, as we look at our vacancies, as I just said, we are aggressively trying to hire and fill those vacancies. If we need to have a reassessment with OMB continues to be a great partner with us and collaborate and do that reassessment. So that's what we're working with in regards to filling our vacancies. I'll get back to you on the numbers that we have, but again, we have hiring fairs, job fairs, and we're really focused on, in particular, the frontline staff that our homeless individuals are eligible for to do outreach work. Who best to get those jobs than someone with lived life experience? So we have targeted job fairs for those particular individuals. For all the other positions, we are aggressively recruiting for those, and I welcome your partnership, and if we can send you those recruitment flyers as well, please share with your constituents, because we do want the best to work in New York City.
So I don't know that I heard a response. Is it your sentiment that PATH is currently adequately staffed?
We constantly look at the staffing levels, as I said, and if we need to address our staffing needs, our staffing levels, we will work with OMB. But as of right now, the resources that we have at PATH is sufficient to handle the workload. But again, if we assess that there is a surge, so to speak, and we can't handle, of course, we work within our system to see how we can redivert staff from other areas, from back-end offices to help us. But again, we will work with OMB.
Have you had to do that?
Excuse me?
Have you had to do that?
No, we have not.
No? Okay. I just wonder, you know, how that impacts the amount of time that a family is waiting if we don't have the appropriate number of staff available. Now, is every family that going in meeting with an actual person, or is any of this work? Because I'm asking because I have heard in the past that sometimes families are at PATH but are communicating with workers via phone. I don't know that that's a real thing, but would like some clarity on that.
So each person that comes into our location is actually interacting with a live person. Due to COVID, we did have to put practices in place that a client may not be able to sit in a cubicle in close proximity with the staff person, but the staff person is present on site and having those conversations remotely. So they may be at their desk in the back while the client is sitting in the waiting area and having that assessment take place. But that was really based on, the COVID restrictions and to make sure that, one, the clients are safe and our staff are safe.
Are those restrictions still in place?
Deputy Speaker, that is no longer in place. Okay. So we're doing face-to-face interviews in our intake and all of our sites.
Yeah, because we've discussed the traumatic, process that an individual going into shelter, regardless of where they're coming from, is. And I think that face-to-face interaction and being able to be greeted by an individual that is understanding and helpful, it's valuable.
Absolutely, totally agree. And again, we had that in place because of the COVID restrictions, and now, Administrator Carter just acknowledged that has been lifted, and now we're doing face-to-face interviews once again. Of course, in a safe environment, to protect both our staff and our clients.
Absolutely, I agree. Okay, can you tell us what the number of families who requested to be reticketed was? And I'm assuming that these are families that voluntarily asked to be reticketed. Am I right in my assumption?
Yes, we'll have to get back to you on the numbers. I myself spoke to a handful of families who were going on to other destinations, but it's really the volunteer groups that have been working closely with these families and individuals to support them to get to their other destinations, because of course they would need to connect with other CBOs there.
And does that happen immediately, or are families offered a space to rest and, kind of gather themselves before they're shipped out on another bus?
Yes, with the buses that are arriving from Texas that were announced on Friday, we have set up a welcome space at Port Authority where we're, connecting with arrivals. And then, if for instance, the individual that wanted to get to Portland, we advised him to stay in our shelter system until we figure out how to help him get there. So that's an option.
So Moya is doing the reticketing, not DHS?
No, the CBOs that we're partnering with, yes. And we're looking to set up a system to support, but again, this situation is very new, that the buses are arriving at Port Authority. Prior to that, individuals and families were arriving in commercial buses, and it was just hard to identify them as they were arriving.
Understood. Do we know how many buses are leaving Texas and Arizona? Are these buses leaving daily, weekly? Like, is there a schedule, or is there unpredictable?
Yeah, again, the company that the state of Texas has chartered has a non-disclosure agreement. That's what we've learned. So they're not allowed to tell us what's happening, how many people are boarding the buses and will arrive to New York. We're learning that people are leaving at different rest stops, which is a concern. And some are leaving because their destination is not New York, and they've been put on these buses towards the city. But yes, again, the state of Texas is being as disruptive as possible, and we're doing all we can with the information we're able to gather through this network of CBOs.
The buses that are arriving in New York City, are they arriving daily, or are they arriving every other day? How predictable? I get the severity of the situation and how.
It's unpredictable, but it now seems that they're arriving basically daily. It's just hard to know at what time. Again, we've learned that a bus is arriving tonight and two more tomorrow, and we presume that this will continue to be the case.
Do you have an average number of individuals that are coming in daily?
On Friday, 54 individuals arrived. However, on Sunday morning, only 14 made it to New York City. We learned that more people were on those buses, but again, they dropped off along the way.
Okay.
So we'll get a better sense of the average as we continue to do this work.
Now, I understand that we're having conversations with the federal government about the need for additional resources. Is that same conversation happening on the state level?
Yes, we're engaged in conversations with our partners at the state level.
Are we asking for anything in specific?
That's what we're doing, as I mentioned earlier, Deputy Speaker. We're doing that assessment and working with OMB in our oversights to better understand what the ask will be.
Okay. I would imagine that a lot of that is the budget, right, that we just voted on may take a hit. I don't know how, do we have the resources in place as we speak today?
The resources as far as...
Do we have the necessary funding in place to open all of these hotels and convert them into temporary shelters?
But that's why we're working with our federal oversight in our state to state that we need additional resources to provide the services to these new New Yorkers.
Okay. All right, and my final question is related to the the pace. If you can tell us what the pace of move-outs has been in the recent few weeks and months.
So on a weekly basis, around 200 individuals move out of shelter with some various type of subsidy. We're really proud of that number. Of course, we want it to increase and make sure that our clients have a choice in regards to which subsidy. Is it EHV, Section 8, city perhaps, state perhaps? So we work with those individuals to identify what's best for them to move out. But looking at our data, it's around 200 individuals per week that's moving out of shelter.
And how does that compare to last year's numbers?
Excuse me?
How does that compare to last year's move-out rates?
I'll get back to you on that,
Okay,
Deputy Speaker.
I appreciate that. I think I have one last question, and it was a question that was asked of me this morning, is how do New Yorkers help? I think New Yorkers are, ready to lend a helping hand and we have received inquiries regarding the need for clothing and food. How are you handling those requests?
So before Commissioner Castro, I just want to make a correction for the record. I said approximately 200 individuals. It's 200 households that move out per week.
Okay.
I just wanted to say that for the record. Go ahead, Commissioner.
We're working with the Mayor's Fund to set up a way for New Yorkers to donate so that we can provide resources to the volunteer groups and nonprofit organizations that we're working with and other basic needs that asylum seekers have.
Okay. Okay. 1 second. Okay. So when an individual comes, when a family comes here, they obviously don't qualify for government aid. What resources are they provided with in terms of clothing? And I'm assuming that the food is pretty much handled at the facility, but if they come here and they have no clothing, how are we addressing that? Is that funding that's coming through the Mayor's Fund?
Well, at first instance, they are being supported, as Administrator Carter mentioned, with food, clothing, and other basic needs, and they've done a tremendous job at doing so.
Okay.
And that's part of our normal process. If a family or individual presents themselves and they need clothing, we work with our providers to ensure that they have the basic necessities to be successful.
Okay. Councilmember Williams has a question.
Yeah, just about the fund that you said you're setting up. I know there was a fund that the mayor's office set up after the fire, and there was like a lot of questions around like transparency and where did the money go. So how do you plan to kind of like report out on that in terms of like the usage of the money?
Yes, we're going to have these conversations with the Mayor's Fund to ensure that we are learning from this experience, and we'll definitely get back to you on how we're going to set up this fund and for what purposes they're going to be used for.
Yeah, I would love to have that information, like I said, because, when these funds are created, there's always questions about getting the money to the people who need it most, and oftentimes you don't see that. So I would love if there's transparency around where this money is going to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Commissioner, for coming. I think that we'll be gathering more information in the next few weeks and figuring out what the next steps are. But we are at your disposal, and we are eager to be helpful. So please use us as a resource.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, council members.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and my condolences to you and your family. And
thank you. I appreciate that.
thank you, council members, for this.
We're going to move on to public testimony now. Menta Kilawan will be calling the first panel.
And as a reminder, for public testimony is going to be 3 minutes. You can always submit your full written testimony, if it's longer than that, to testimony@council.nyc.gov. Our first public panel will be in person and will be comprised of Monsignor Kevin Sullivan, Catherine Cliff, Catherine Trapani, Limaris Alborz, and Karim Walker. Oh, you can give it to the sergeant over there. Yeah. All right, we can begin with Monsignor.
Sorry, guys, can you have that conversation outside, please? We need quiet on the floor. Thank you. We can begin. Want to start with Monsignor?
Who's first? I am?
Yep.
Okay.
I think they're ready for you.
You can begin. Monsignor, you?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, great. Well, Deputy Speaker, you and your family are my prayers. I have my written testimony. You have that. Let me just say, I'm angry, I'm frustrated, I'm proud, and I'm hopeful, okay? And the past month at Catholic Charities, we have seen 1,100 individuals who have shown up at our doors in Midtown Manhattan, in addition to some who have showed up in East Harlem and some in the South Bronx. So we've seen 1,100 individuals, predominantly young men from Venezuela, parentheses, to Councilmember Brewer. We have a wonderful relationship with the various consulates. The consulate of Venezuela has been missing in action, okay? So the other consulates are very responsive. Venezuela has not been. So we've seen 1,100, mostly young men in their 20s, their 30s, but also women with children and from some other countries. What we have done is not much, but yet a lot. Every one of those individuals has been interviewed with compassion and with respect to try to understand their situation, giving them just a small amount of food because they're coming, some from the bus, but also some already are settled in shelters. Clothes, as we have, a very small amount of financial assistance, but probably very significantly, we have reviewed every one of their immigration documentations to triage, to see who's are in difficult situations. The chaos, which angers me, is we've seen over 200 documents that have been issued by immigration authorities in Texas that have listed our office as the residences of these individuals who are there. We are very frightened that they're going to miss court appearances because they're not going to get notice that they have to show up. So that's who we are. That's who we are seeing. That is our experience. I want to say a word of real thanks, and this is what makes me frustrated, is that this is a national problem that Congress has been unable to resolve for more than 3-4 decades. We should not be surprised that these crises emerge periodically, because as a nation, we haven't dealt with the immigration problem that they have. So that's what we're dealing with here. But why am I proud? I'm proud because Deputy Speaker and your other council members are holding this hearing. I'm proud because as New Yorkers, they are our people, and we are going to respond to them. Catholic Charities has already responded. We will be partners going forward. I'm very want to compliment you on the questions that have been asked. We've been asking them too. Listen, we know they talk about silos of funding and federal prohibition. New York City, with a budget of over $100 billion, New York State with a budget of close to $200 billion, there's money that doesn't need to deal with some of the federal prohibitions for us to be a compassionate welcoming. The one word of hope that I want to add. Do you know what most of the young men who have approached us want? What's the first word out of their mouth? Can you get me a job? This is a crisis. We need to respond, But this is an opportunity. These are going to become new, vibrant New Yorkers, taking the jobs that our restaurants can't fill at the moment and doing construction work. They're going to make our economy more vibrant. They're going to make New York more vibrant. And so in the midst of my anger, my frustration, I'm proud that we're in New York, and I'm hopeful that this is an opportunity for us to be even a better city. Thank you.
Thank you, Monsignor. I wonder, because you're seeing, and thank you for all of the work that you do. I know that Catholic Charities is an outstanding group, and the work that you do is God's work. So thank you for all of that. But I have a question, because you mentioned that the majority of the individuals that you're coming in contact with are young men, and there is this concern that we're separating families, or that we have so many singles, specifically young men, that are going to Bellevue and probably just deciding that this is really not an avenue for them, and maybe sleeping out in the streets. Has that been your experience?
We have heard. Some of them have told us that they went to the shelter and they slept last night in one of the parks or in one of the plazas. And since they're in the front of the building where my office is, on my way in, every day I just talk to a bunch of them and ask where they spent last night, what are you doing today, where'd you come from, et cetera. So I know some are sleeping in the parks. So that's the reality.
All right. Thank you. Any questions, Gail, for Monsignor? Okay.
One question is, are you able to make the connection between the men and jobs, the workforce that are opportunities, or are there barriers that we should be addressing? As the commissioner indicated, we're all trying to address these barriers.
So a couple of things. One is we are doing just a modicum of trying to set up some classes for basic English so they can learn English. We're also going to set up, we're in the process of some OSHA training so they have a little bit of safety. The city is very good and generous in funding work with day laborer sites, so we've introduced some of them to those day laborer sites. So I would say continue to be robust in making sure that those day laborer sites are there. And, it's a crisis, but if it's 4,000 people, they're going to just fill our economy. They're going to make it, because that's why immigrants come here. And some of them have said, yes, the busing is not acceptable. But when you talk to them, they say, well, hey, I'm coming to New York because that's where you make it. So I'm convinced that with a little bit of help, and we got to deal with the crisis that is now, shelter, all of that, but with a little bit of helping hand to our new arrivals, they're going to become New Yorkers like all of us.
Yeah, but Monsignor, you have to be able to, one, that tells the city these are the barriers that have to be eliminated, and don't be quiet about it, please. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. I always do what you tell me, so I will.
Oh, my goodness. There she goes. Scaring the
So one
Catholic
thing I'll
Church.
tell you is the conversation about the reception center. We got to have some services at that reception center, so it's a little bit of a one-stop shopping. That's.
Yeah, and you actually raised a really good point about the address issue, because I know that in East Harlem we have the common pantry, and oftentimes homeless, men primarily use them as a viable address, because they know that their mail is safe with them. There should be. I mean, I would argue that there's concern about mail being lost in the transition of shuffling families and singles from one place to the other, most specifically with the singles population.
Yep.
So, I can see why they, obviously they didn't choose to use your address, but I think that we should be looking at alternatives like that, just to ensure that these families have access to their appointments and their schedule.
Yeah, very good point. The other thing, which, as you know as well, if not better than me, the social networks among the groups of immigrants, the use of WhatsApp and other things, they're a network. So we have already gathered a lot of that information so we can communicate with those who have showed up at our door.
Absolutely, connecting them to, as Councilmember Hanif mentioned, to ID NYC, but also free phones, right? I'm assuming that these families haven't spoken to anyone in their country in quite some time,
Right.
and are desperate to do that. So any way that we can facilitate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Council, and thank you to Deputy Speaker Ayala and the Council for holding this very important hearing. My name is Catherine Cliff. I'm a staff attorney at the Legal Aid Society and our Homeless Rights Project. I'm here today to testify on behalf of Legal Aid and also Coalition for the Homeless. We heard a lot of testimony about what's been happening with the asylum seekers coming into the city, whether by their own choice or not. But this hearing was focused on what's happening at PATH. And I think we're very frustrated that the city has known for months that there was going to be an uptick this summer in the number of families coming into shelter. And that was regardless of asylum seekers coming. That's because the eviction moratorium expired. That's because we see a lot of families in the summer just generally come into PATH. It's easier to go through that system when your kids are not in school, families that were doubled up needing to seek shelter. So while there is an increase in the number of asylum seekers coming through, there's also just many New Yorkers who are coming into the system, and the city should have been planning for that. And instead, they just watched the vacancy rate fall and fall and fall, and now until a point where they literally ran out of placements for families with children one night, which they've acknowledged that violation. We've seen from our own clients additional violations. I have multiple clients that arrived at PATH prior to 10 p.m., but the line was so long to see the front desk that they weren't clocked in until after 10 p.m. I have a client that arrived at 5:40 p.m. and was not seen until after 10 p.m. So the city does not count that as a violation, but these were families in the building prior to 10 p.m. that slept in the building. We also met many families who arrived at 10 p.m. or later who slept in the building, which is not business as usual at PATH. No one wants those families sleeping in the building. The PATH staff doesn't, DHS doesn't, we don't. And so it was really alarming that initial week after the violations were reported to see how many families were sleeping in the building and how many violations occurred that have not been reported. So we really call on the city to develop a comprehensive plan to deal with the capacity issues. And this is capacity for asylum seekers and capacity for New Yorkers. The reality is when you have a low capacity that people who are fleeing domestic violence situations or human trafficking situations and need to be in specific locations, the city is unable to accommodate that, and it can be very dangerous. So we have a lot of recommendations in our written testimony, and I wanted to highlight some of those for you now. In addition to increasing capacity, adding more shelters, getting back to the goal of a 5% vacancy rate, we also need to increase our supply of affordable housing, and that means housing that is deeply subsidized and affordable to our clients, to homeless families and individuals. We're calling for 6,000 new units per year. The prior administration focused on preservation, but we're calling for new units. We also need to help people move out of shelters. We need to fight against source of income discrimination, as was mentioned by Councilmember Williams. And as Councilmember Brewer mentioned, we need to expand subsidies and streamline the city FEPS process. That process is far too bureaucratic, and we have many clients calling us. They found an apartment, they have a voucher, and they somehow can't get out of the shelter because of delays. And so that process needs to be reconsidered, and we include a lot of specifics in our testimony. We also need to pass good cause eviction, and we need to support the new arrivals to New York City, as has been documented. I've met so many families at PATH the past few weeks. I've spent a lot of time up there speaking to them, and they've been through incredible trauma, and their needs are very, very high, and they're not being met currently at PATH. So we've been trying to connect people to what they need, but the need is extremely high, and it is different than what PATH is used to doing. So thank you for the opportunity to speak today.
Can you share again what the length of time that a person is standing in line is? What the average?
So that first week that the violations were reported, they were reported on a Sunday night, the 17th. I was there on Thursday, but I had a client who was there Tuesday night, and she arrived at 5:42 p.m. and did not make it to the line until 10:23 p.m. They pulled her out of line at one point, made her get back in line. We met another client who had arrived at 10 and didn't get to the front of the line until 1 a.m. And so I think that week in particular, clients were waiting 2, 3, 4 hours just to get through the line.
Do you think that that's due to staffing shortages, or is it something else?
It's staffing, but it's also bilingual staffing. So because there's been an uptick in the number of people who need interpreters, PATH was not prepared for that and had to use language line, which can take a really long time versus if you have a native speaker available to speak to clients. So when we were there more recently, they had contracted interpreters on multiple floors, and that had really helped move things along and move things along more quickly. So things have definitely improved since I've been there in the last week or two. But obviously, there's still a great need, and the capacity is still a very serious concern.
Understood. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, everybody. My name is Catherine Trapani. I'm the Executive Director at Homeless Services United. I want to just highlight a few things, and I'll be submitting a lengthier testimony in writing in the next day or so. But as Catherine Cliff already stated, there was a capacity crisis before the asylum seekers started to arriving. And you know, the members at HSU are willing and able partners to work with the City of New York to expand shelter capacity. What we need to do this well is a reliable pipeline that we can trust. And so one of the things that I find really frustrating is that, you know, we had shelters ready to go in the pipeline that were canceled at the last moment due to NIMBYism, political opposition, and so on. Had the communities and the mayor stood behind our providers and said, nope, we're going to open these, it's the right thing to do, we have to do it, perhaps the current capacity crisis wouldn't be the way it is. So I'm here to sort of reinforce the request that has been repeated over and over in this hearing, that every single community needs to raise their hand. I know you have, and others need to join you to welcome these households into shelter. The other way you can create new shelter capacity quickly is to empty the shelters that you already have. So I echo some of the recommendations that Catherine Cliff just made about expediting placements into permanent housing, making it easier to qualify for rental assistance, streamlining the leasing process, combating source of income discrimination, and really making sure that the folks that are literally languishing in shelters just waiting for an apartment can be placed expeditiously. The other thing that we have to do is to ensure that people are not losing their homes unnecessarily. There is a crisis at our housing courts. The right to counsel is not being upheld because the OCA refused to slow down the calendar and we don't have enough lawyers. We have to make sure that everybody has an attorney, that rental assistance is getting provided, that it's easier to qualify for FEPS and city FEPS from the community so that we can reduce the number of people coming in. If we do these three things, prevent, shelter, and rehouse, we can meet the moment. So, you know, more fulsome recommendations on that will be forthcoming in writing, but I really wanted to emphasize that. I also want to speak quickly, you've been talking about the staffing challenges, and I want to really thank the frontline workers, not just at the city, but also at the nonprofits. These folks are working incredibly hard. Their caseloads are impossible, and we really need support for our staff. The city had previously authorized retention incentive bonuses as well as hiring bonuses. They promised us that that money would be forthcoming. We were using accruals to pay for it, so this wasn't even new money. Yet the approvals to pay those out to our staff are being held up by red tape, and so we have not been able to release those funds. This council passed a bill for prevailing wage for shelter security guards. Those amendments are still not registered. That money is not out the door. We really need to be able to make sure that the commitments we make to our workers are honored and that the money is getting to the nonprofits in a timely manner. If I could just quickly finish, we also still have many unregistered amendments for other things in our pipeline. I know the city declared victory, saying that we had really cleared the backlog. Our shelter providers are not necessarily feeling that. So if we can't normalize our fiscal operations and ensure that our staff are being paid and valued at what they deserve, then it's going to be very difficult to rise to the challenge to open new capacity when we need it. So all of these things, we have to come together. The nonprofits are here. We want to help, but we need to make sure that we can pay our folks. And then, you know, obviously then we can do the services the way our clients need and deserve to make sure that people get the counseling, the care, the compassion, trauma-informed services, and of course, permanent housing. Thank you.
Thank you. And I know that the comptroller has been working around the clock to try to get as many of the backlog contracts out. And I think that there also has to be a little, an opportunity to better educate some of our nonprofits that are missing documentation or don't know when to respond or how to respond or to whom, so that we're not seeing the type of backlogs that we have. And I think in terms of the vouchers and how to get people housed, I think, obviously we have to address the income discrimination issue that continues to happen, and the ways that landlords seem to, be 10 steps ahead of us all of the time, and, find creative ways of really, keeping available units out of the reach of voucher holders. Thank you so much. Limaris? Sí.
Good afternoon, and thank you for this opportunity. Mis condolencias, Deputy Speaker.
Maris, are you on the mic? Put the mic.
¿Estoy en el mic?
Yeah, there you go.
My name is Limaris Albores, and I am the CEO of Acacia Network. Acacia Network is one of the largest Latino-led organizations in New York City and a provider of integrated housing, health, social services, economic development, and cultural programs. Among other services, we provide transitional housing and homeless services in partnership with the Department of Homeless Services. We currently operate sites that serve single adults, adult families, and families with children. Acacia don't usually come here and do testimonies. However, what we have seen in the past couple of weeks have extremely touched our hearts, and I felt compelled to come here and share our experience. We estimate that close to 70 to 80% of the individuals and families who have been assigned to our new sites are new immigrants, the majority of whom are asylum seekers, as we have been discussing today. That said, we at Acacia find ourselves at a crossroad in New York City. As a right to shelter city, it is our mandate to provide beds for anyone in need of a secure place to sleep. We also recognize that the shelter system is already burdened, and that the city agencies and nonprofit entities alike have struggled with staff burnout, turnover, and loss of resources, especially as a result of COVID. While we recognize the challenges that serving a large influx of new homeless individuals can present, we also think that it is an opportunity to set an example at the local, state, and a national level. New York City has been built and continues to thrive as a result of the millions of immigrants who have called this great city their home. At Acacia, rather than focusing the conversation on how the immigrants got here, we must concentrate on how to serve them and address their needs now that they are here. No matter what brought these families here, we have a moral and legal obligation to ensure adequate services for all those who are in need, whether they're new to this country or not. That said, as a provider in the front line who has been serving asylum seekers for the past couple of weeks, these are the observations. The work should start at the city intake centers. We must ensure that workers at the intake centers, many of whom are the first point of contact for these families, are providing the necessary information in a simple, concise, and linguistically responsive manner. These include trauma-informed intake procedures, bilingual workers that are able to explain to clients why they can expand in a way that they can understand it, provide materials such as frequently asked questions in Spanish to provide important phone numbers, locations, and other information. At the intake center, we need to make sure that they understand the needs of the families and clients, that they can do a triaging, and they can provide case management. Many of these individuals coming into our newly opened sites are disappointed when they learn that they won't immediately be placed in permanent housing or be offered a job. May I finish my testimony? Thank you. We must work together to ensure that these clients are adequately informed regarding our own processes and procedures. We must also recognize that while the asylum seekers share many of the same needs as other clients in the shelter system, they also have a unique set of needs that require increased service coordination, including intensive immigration assistance, legal services. This is key. We also expediting or facilitating a temporary permit for work. They can become our own peers in our shelters, and they can be the one welcoming the next influx of asylum seekers. If we can provide the training, they can become our ambassadors. Nobody knows what they went through that through their own experience. So that's what we have been seeing is key. Access to primary care and behavioral health services, it's very critical. I would like to finish my testimony by sharing a recent story. Just last week, the operation manager and chief supervisor at one of our sites delivered a baby girl before EMS could arrive. After a very long journey to the United States, this baby girl was born safe and healthy in a New York City shelter. This is a testament to the work that happens every single day at our shelters. Yes, it is very challenging. We have not slept. We are committed. We are a can-do organization, and to share a story like this one is very rewarding. Thank you for your time.
Ooh, thank you, Limaris. Thank you. I believe that the one of the sites that Acacia is overseeing is in the South Bronx, right? Yeah, I would like the opportunity to come and visit.
Absolutely. You know you can walk in anytime.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Make sure your mic is on.
Oh,
yeah, there you go.
It's on. Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Karim Walker. I am a homeless organizer and outreach worker with the Safety Net Project at UJC, Urban Justice Center. For the past 7 months in his time in office, Mayor Adams has shown that he is committed to the worst of the de Blasio administration's handling of the homelessness crisis. Broken windows policy, oriented homelessness, sweeps. We all know those things will not work in addressing a very otherwise a seemingly intractable problem. And as of June, recently, some 68% of applicants to PATH have been turned away. And we are with more than 50% of families who were eventually found eligible having to reapply more than once, and in some cases more than 3 times before they're found. Crucially, the administration has sent a message also to landlords that they are not committed to honoring the source of income discrimination law, meaning, and that, of course, as we know, keeps those who are voucher holders, like myself, in shelters longer than necessary. This is something that the city must do better by, especially if we want people to come in and trust the system and give them a reason to believe that the system works for them. Similar to the de Blasio administration, particularly in its second term, the Adams administration has put public relations ahead far above the needs of the people. This is shown clearly with the mayor's approach to street homelessness, where the city's PR team provides virtually meaningless numbers to score headlines while being unable to answer the most basic questions. For example, what percentage of the people from the underground and above ground sweeps are entering and staying in shelters? As we found out from the de Blasio administration, routinely provided misleading and dishonest information to the public regarding homelessness, an increased focus on PR over substance correlates closely to cruelty towards those most in need. In fact, I'd like to clarify this, I know this wasn't part of what I was going to say, but I actually, in my work recently, came across a sweep notice in a park in Park Slope, Brooklyn, not far from the R train, the Prospect Avenue stop on the R train. And when I've seen some of these sweeps recently, there's no, the police are first and foremost at the forefront of this. And we've seen time and again, that will not help in addressing homelessness. And it is imperative that the city of New York look into a solution that is housing oriented and not just housing oriented, but housing first. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Brewer has a question.
Thank you. I do want to thank Coalition and Legal Aid for your very specific recommendations. I'm just getting emails. You'd be interested to know Catholic Charities, not just you, but every homeless youth program is now on some kind of a database in Texas by the border. And all of them who are people leaving the border are being given their addresses as their home address. So it's not just Catholic Charities. Is that legal, I wonder, according to legal aid to do that? I suppose it's one of those very nuanced things that's probably hard to fight, but I'm just wondering because there are 5 nonprofits right here now, in addition to Catholic Charities, that are being told that's your home, go there.
DHS admitted that it should not have been done and that they were going to stop it.
It's been done today, just FYI, right now, so.
Yeah.
So I am not an immigration attorney, but my understanding is those forms, that what's supposed to happen is the individual is supposed to choose the address that goes on there. So obviously, if they're being provided an address, maybe they're being told by Customs and Border Protection that's a place you can stay. They believe it is, and they say okay, but clearly it's not. It's an administrative office, or it's a place that is not somewhere they can stay. So obviously, very concerning. And we have met families, with those forms and confused about where to go, and it's really important they know to change their address with ICE so that they get those important documents. So that is one of the things that I know we've spoken with Catherine about, is trying to notify families how important it is to make sure that ICE knows where you are so you don't miss your hearings.
Yeah, if I could just add, one of the things that HSU and our members have asked is for guidance that we can pass on to the frontline staff of the shelters so that we can advise people on how to change these addresses once they are placed in a shelter facility. So I've taken on the task of aggregating information from my colleagues on this panel and from others, and thank you, actually all of you, for having your staff inform what goes in that, and I'll be circulating it to our members, but we don't represent everybody, and we really need to make sure that there are comprehensive guides so that the case managers, many of whom are newly hired to do this work for the first time, are going to have a step-by-step guide so that the people that are coming into our facilities understand how to update their address, where to go for these concrete services that everybody is talking about, how to apply for ID NYC, like all of those steps that are not necessarily intuitive, particularly if you are a very new New Yorker who has been through tremendous trauma.
Catholic Charities has been doing this for years, so have you, but all of these youth programs that now have 10, 12, 15 young people from Venezuela in their spaces without immigration law training. So I know you've been done. Just so you know, be aware that they're all swamped. And they used to refer, but there's no place to refer because everybody else is booked. The waiting list is 200, and now they can't help the young people who are already on their caseload.
You're absolutely right. We're running into
And I got 5 emails in the last 10 minutes to this effect.
major capacity issues at our legal services providers.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Next panel.
The next panel is going to be a virtual panel, and it will be comprised of Jasmine Cummings, Anthony Feliciano, Deborah Berkman, and Sarah Wilson. And for those joining us virtually, you may have to wait a couple seconds to be unmuted from staff. Again, we're going to begin with Jasmine Cummings, followed by Anthony Feliciano, followed by Deborah Berkman, followed by Sarah Wilson. Over now to Jasmine Cummings.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jasmine Cummings, and I'm the Senior Director of Programs at Project Renewal, a New York City homeless services nonprofit agency. Thank you to Chair Ayala and fellow City Council members for giving me this opportunity to testify. My condolences to Chair Ayala and your family as well. For 55 years, Project Renewal has empowered individuals and families experiencing homelessness to renew their lives. Each year, Project Renewal serves thousands of New Yorkers through our comprehensive health, homes, and jobs programs. Project Renewal operates 7 city-funded shelters, 1 for LGBTQI young adults, 1 for women, and 5 for single adult men. Our shelter residents often have histories of substance abuse disorder, mental health concerns, or criminal justice involvement, and we support them to take the next step in their lives. Most of our shelters are either at or near capacity. While we do provide services to individuals who are undocumented or seeking asylum, we have not yet observed a notable influx. There's a confluence of factors that have contributed to capacity issues across the system. The first is the end of eviction moratorium, which had kept New Yorkers in their homes throughout the pandemic. We are now seeing rising eviction rates and more people turning to shelter as a result. Even prior to the pandemic, the city has long operated on a very small shelter capacity margin, which allows little room for flexibility when crises such as the pandemic and/or influx and asylum seekers arise. Increasing the number of safe haven beds is a sensible approach since these spaces tend to have more privacy and lower barriers to entry than typical congregate shelters. Building quality, purpose-built shelters would also go a long way towards increasing capacity. There, there are, of course, many challenges with building new safe havens and shelters, including long timelines, bureaucratic red tape, and frequent pushback from communities who do not want new shelters in their neighborhoods. It is important for nonprofits to have support from the city to acknowledge and address misconceptions that new shelters will result in increased crime and or decreased property values. Another challenge when it comes to expanding shelter and housing is our workforce. Filling open positions is crucial so we can help the city respond to current needs. But if we don't have the staff, that limits our ability to adapt and add capacity. Getting quick and clear guidance from the city to implement the cost of living adjustment for human service workers would help with staff recruitment and retention. It is heartening that both the city and state see the conversion of distressed hotels into affordable and supportive housing as a solution to getting more housing online quickly, as a lack of affordable housing has long prevented people from being able to move out of the shelter and remain housed. A matchmaker from the city or someone who can connect hotels
Time
interested in
expired.
selling with nonprofit.
Go ahead, you can continue.
Okay, thank you. A matchmaker from the city and or someone who can connect hotels interested in selling with nonprofit developers would be incredibly beneficial for expediting conversions. Nonprofits simply do not have the resources to identify such hotels, which is the crucial first step in the conversion process. While the factors leading to the high shelter census are complex, there are ways for nonprofits in the city to work together to ensure New Yorkers can access shelter and ultimately move into permanent housing. We look forward to working more with the committee and welcome suggestions for greater partnership in the future. And thank you for the opportunity to provide this testimony.
Thank you, Jasmine, for your testimony. We are now going to move to Anthony Feliciano. Over to Anthony Feliciano.
Thank you.
Your time starts.
Chairperson Ayala and Deputy Speaker. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Anthony Feliciano. I am the Vice President for Community Mobilization and Advocacy for Housing Works. Some of you may know me from a prior work that I did at the Commission on the Public Health System. But now I'm at Housing Works and part of this healing community that provides a range of integrated medical and behavioral health, housing, and supportive services for over 15,000 low-income New Yorkers annually, with a focus on the marginalized and most underserved. Housing Works urges the council to exercise the oversight authority to ensure that the city fulfills its obligation to meet the needs of all individuals and families experiencing homelessness in New York City, and to do so with accommodation and services that are safe, appropriate, and satisfy the city's duty of care owed to every person forced to rely on public resources to meet their most basic substance needs. We're proud to live in a city that welcomes rather than shuns new immigrants and asylum seekers, and that recognizes the fundamental human rights to a safe shelter. So while we support city efforts to secure available federal funding to provide a broad range of services for asylum seekers, it is critical to remember that the city has an obligation to commit our own resources and efforts to ensure that each individual and family experiencing homelessness receives the help they need. This includes the state. The right to shelter in New York City does not depend upon who you are, where you come from, and where you're going. Housing Works fears that the public back and forth on an anti-immigration stunt pulled by the governors of Texas or Arizona are providing a distraction from the more fundamental problems underlying the long-standing failures of New York City's homeless response. And a time for the council and the minister to take decisive action to transform the city's inhumane and ineffective response to the homeless crisis. It was not until our work over the past 2 years providing COVID isolation and quarantine services for people experiencing homelessness that Housing has come to deeply appreciate how awful and dehumanizing the city shelter system is and the urgent need to transform the way homeless people are treated in New York City. We must stop criminalizing and harassing people experiencing homelessness to sweeps of the subway and violent disruptions of their encampments, and those who opt for survival in public rather than entering frightening shelters. We urgently need new approaches and new vision for what is acceptable. Addressing homelessness, of course, requires substantial new city investments in housing with deep affordability portability, meaningful rental assistance with single payment standards such as city FHUPs programs approved by the council, and supported housing units for those who need it. We must also meet the needs of the many sheltered and unsheltered people experiencing homelessness who are coping with untreated or undertreated chronic medical or behavioral health issues. We must stop treating mental illness as a substance use disorder and substance use disorder among low-income New Yorkers
Time
as a
expired.
criminal justice rather than public health issues. I'll go over testimony a little bit long, so I'll go over the next one. Housing has worked on plans on opening innovative new models for addressing street homelessness that will combine street outreach and drop-in centers and private stabilization beds with on-site medical and behavioral health centers, healthcare. All delivered employing evidence-based low-threshold approaches that have been proven to enable persons to live in the streets, establish disability, and connect to needed care. One gives me up to in conclusion, we need to make sure the councilmen continue to be whole when it comes to addressing New York City unprecedented homeless crisis. We have secured hotels closed by COVID in a high-need Manhattan neighborhood, made necessary alterations, and we're 2 weeks away from opening a facility that will have provided 100 desperately needed stabilization beds when Mayor Adams pulled the plug on the project at the request of the Hotel Trades Council and an ally support of his mayoral campaign. Other safe havens and civil facilities have been likewise abandoned in the face of opposition from those with the mayor's here. And I would just say there's a difference between our stabilization shelter and what is considered a shelter. So I'll end there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony, for your testimony. We are now going to move to Deborah Berkman for testimony. Over to Deborah Berkman.
Time begin.
Thank you very much. Deputy Speaker Ayala, council members and staff, good afternoon. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to the Committee on General Welfare and other members of council. I just want to start by offering my condolences to Deputy Speaker Ayala on the loss of your uncle. I'm so sorry to hear about that. My name is Deb Berkman, and I'm the coordinating attorney of the Shelter Advocacy Initiative at the New York Legal Assistance Group, or NYLAG. I represent people experiencing homelessness, and I work closely with NYLAG's Immigrant Protection Unit. In recent weeks, numerous families who have sought asylum in the United States from Venezuela and Colombia have contacted me for shelter advocacy. Their stories share some similarities. All of them have traveled great distances, much of it on foot, to escape the unspeakable horrors they faced in their home countries. All of them have waited extreme lengths of time at PATH DHS intake before they were assigned to shelter, with at least 3 families staying there for over 2 nights. And all of them report very few employees at PATH who speak Spanish or who are willing to use an interpreter or language line. Instead, they report being spoken to in English, which they do not understand. All of them report difficult conditions at the shelters they've been assigned, including lack of water on demand and lack of diapers. And many of them report staff who subject them to harassment and racial slurs. One of my clients, Ms. M, who was forced to flee Colombia with her husband and her 2 small children because an aggrieved business associate of her brother's had threatened to set her street vendor business on fire and murder her and her children. They had a harrowing journey through Mexico, during which Ms. M had to run with her children strapped to her body so they wouldn't be separated. When the family reached the United States border, Ms. M and her husband were sent on separate planes to New York City. And when they were reunited at the New York airport, the airport staff found Ms. M crying with her hungry children, one of whom had a fever, and sent them in a car to PATH intake. Ms. M and her family slept at the PATH intake office for 2 nights on chairs before they were assigned to shelter. Once in shelter, staff refused to provide her with formula for her baby or soap for the family to bathe. At one point, Ms. M asked the staff for diapers for her baby, and she was told that she should go to work and buy them herself. And Ms. M does report that those comments are a routine part of her life at shelter. I have other clients who also report similar experiences with aggression from shelter staff and sleeping over 2 nights in chairs in the crowded PATH intake center. One NYLAG client, Ms. P, and her husband and 5 children had a similar journey from Venezuela and eventually were given a temporary placement in a DHS shelter. But a few days after being placed there, they were awoken at 1 o'clock in the morning and they were told they had to leave by staff who had been hostile to them since their arrival. They weren't given a written notice, they weren't given an oral notice of why they had to leave, nor given any information on how they can reapply. This family wandered the streets in over 90-degree heat with their 5 children from 1 o'clock in the morning to 1 o'clock the next day when
Time
they
expired.
found my legal help desk. I'll finish up. Upon returning to path, they were told that they were incorrectly kicked out of their shelter and that it had been a mistake on the part of staff. DHS has to immediately ensure that all families are promptly processed through PATH, and families should not have to sleep there overnight or on multiple nights. Moreover, all shelters need adequate Spanish-speaking staff or available translation services, and they have to be provided with sufficient food, water, and crucial supplies such as diapers. In addition to the substantial social service needs our clients have, recently arrived asylum-seeking families are also in need of urgent immigration assistance and counsel. Many of our families are being placed on a quickly moving dedicated immigration court docket with hearings scheduled just weeks after their arrival in the United States, which gives them insufficient time to seek assistance and prepare their asylum claims. NYLA requests that the City Council and the Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs dedicate new funding and programmatic support to legal services providers and to community organizations who have already stepped in to address this urgent need. Also, we would want to note that New York City welcomed displaced Ukrainians who arrived in New York in the immediate aftermath of Russia's invasion and who still continue to seek refuge in the US. And New York City provided both emergency and long-term support to triage legal issues, offered cash assistance and social services, and articulated a welcoming message. To do any less for asylum-seeking families from other areas of the globe would be shameful. So we ask that City Council respond with parity to this crisis as they have to others. I will submit more full written testimony. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah, for your testimony. We're now going to move to Sarah Wilson for testimony. Over to Sarah.
Time starts.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Sarah Wilson. Among many things, I am a formerly homeless housing advocate, and that's how I'm going to speaking to you today. Previous administrations have left you tasked with an obscene amount of persons who are unhoused. While there has been great progress made, there's still a lot more that needs to be done. I pray and implore everyone in this hearing to please expedite all the existing shelter residents vouchers and voucher holders immediate housing to make room for the new population of asylum seekers that are seeking refuge and need additional resources and assistance. While I commend the actions that you're taking for new asylum seekers who I proudly stand in solidarity with, I want to ensure that any emergency expedited policies we're able to create are also made eligible for those who are already existing in shelter, and that we be purposeful that our new policies do not negatively affect the existing population the administrator adopted when it took office. I have a 7-year-old friend who went through school last year in shelter. He's set to start school this year in shelter. His mother died in prison, and there's about 20,000 children in the shelter system already. I want to be clear, I do not feel negatively about the new asylum seekers. My work in housing advocacy says differently. I fight for all to have access to housing, resources, and opportunities, like legislation that could help get undocumented residents eligible for housing vouchers. Like we tried to before with the housing access voucher. I know that there's still a lot of work to be done. I'm not here to pit one group of at-risk persons against another. I'm here to seek the same legislations that we create and that we're able to make be eligible for all persons living in New York to get the same expedited resources. And I have faith in this room that they'll be able to offer the same single rooms, stabilization beds, safe havens, expedited vouchers, and very low income housing, supportive housing, whatever would fit the criteria to transition all of these people out into real affordable housing. And I'll leave it at that. Thank you all so very much for everything. God bless.
Thank you, Sarah, and thank you to this entire panel for your testimony. I'm now going to call up an in-person panel of those who are here. The panelists will be in the following order, and I apologize if I mispronounce your names. Magali Bohom, Milton Perez, Susan Lee, and Yesenia Mata.
Hello, my name is Magali Bonhomme. I am currently a shelter resident at Weston TLC. I'd like to begin by offering my condolences to Deputy Speaker Diana Ayala. My condolences to you and your family. Sorry, I'm a little nervous.
Slow and easy, we all got nervous.
I just want to highlight some of the things that goes on in the shelters. I've been in the shelter system for almost 13 months, and I found that incompetence seems to be the rule, and that greatly concerns me. I don't think asylum seekers deserve that. At my shelter currently, it's woefully understaffed and staff is underpaid. I currently don't have a case manager. There aren't any case managers at my shelter at the moment. And I've heard stories about case managers and housing specialists in other shelters who are indifferent to the jobs that they're supposed to do. They just neglect the paperwork that they're supposed to do, and they spend their time on the computer shopping or even watching porn. I'm also, my shelter is relatively safe, but I've also heard stories about violence that takes place in other shelters, you know, drug dealers dealing drugs in the shelters, pimps coming in and beating up security. And I just, current residents, current DHS clients don't deserve that, and asylum seekers fleeing, you know, escaping trauma in their homelands definitely don't deserve that. So I just wanted to highlight that briefly.
I agree, and thank you so much for coming today. You did great. Next, yeah.
Let me check off my mask. Greetings. First of all, bienvenidos a nuestros amigos y amigas que vienen buscando asilo a estos Estados Unidos. My name is Milton Perez. I'm from the Bronx, Puerto Rico. I'm a member of Vocal New York Homelessness Union. And I was in the shelter over 5 years. You know, I stopped counting at 5 years. The people did not believe me. But some of those people, you know, been in the shelter now 3 and 4 years themselves. As far as the asylum seekers, welcome them. You know, this is New York. This is what we do traditionally. So there should be no questions as far as them being welcomed. Whatever we need to do, reach out to Senator Schumer or Representative Ocasio-Cortez to get that federal funding. It needs to be done, no questions. But let's remember the hundreds, maybe thousands of people in shelter that have immigration issues, whether they're undocumented or they may have trouble with a green card or a birth certificate. You know, I knew a roommate who 5 months in was still trying to get help to get his birth certificate so he could get a voucher. A lot of these people that are undocumented been here 20, 30, 40 years working and are now elderly, you know, with health issues, and they get no help. They have no hope to get out as of now, but there are things that could be done. City feds could be expanded to include undocumented people on a citywide level. On a state level, we could pass HABP, the Housing Access Voucher Program, that would include undocumented people and the people of state. And let's not forget, the right to shelter in the city is founded on state law. So I ask, you know, all the politicians, you know, the people here, the people who stay behind, thank you, to advocate, you know, for those sorts of things that are possible to do. In closing, I do want to thank all the good people that do work in the system. I hear a lot of positive stuff that's being said about staff and these shelters. And I have to say, yeah, there are people that do want to help, but that's not everybody. There's a lot of bad actors. A lot of people that do not care at all. It's just a check to them. And people have to deal with this on a day-to-day basis. And it's very difficult. In closing, you know, I want to thank the advocates, the organizers who have educated me as far as what's been going on in these years, and even the new city council, and even the positive things that the mayor's been doing, Mayor Adams. You know, we agree on some things and disagree on others. But at the end of the day, we're all fighting for housing, for justice. And the saying is that we've been saying for a couple of years now, housing, justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Deputy Speaker Ayala. My name is Susan Lee, and I'm the founder of the Alliance for Community Preservation and Betterment. I am a lifelong New Yorker and currently reside in City Council District 1. This fiscal year's budget allocated $2.4 billion to homeless services. Median rents are reaching record highs, and evictions will increase. While we need to assist New Yorkers who rely on the shelter system, we must, at the same time, hold shelter providers accountable. As you've just heard from the speaker in our panel, the first speaker in our panel, violence against residents are documented in these shelters, and I strongly urge the New York City Comptroller's Office to audit these shelter providers to make sure that our tax dollars are used in an efficient way to help our unhoused homeless individuals back on their feet and into housing so that they can provide for their families and their loved ones. New Yorkers need responsible government and strong leadership to implement policies to get homeless individuals off the streets and into shelters with wraparound services. With New York's right to shelter law, we are obligated to provide shelters to migrant bus from Texas. At CB4 meeting on July 27th, Councilmember Bottcher said that his office received a call from the city notifying him about placement of 600 border families in various Times Square hotels in the coming weeks. This is already in addition to 100 men housed at the Travel Inn and 210 homeless families at the Skyline Hotel. A huge percentage of the families are asylum seekers who just arrived from the border. The Alliance is concerned that the hotels in Council District 1 will also be used to house border families with little to no notification to the public, as in the case of Councilmember Bottcher's district. I just want to emphasize that I am here to testify not because of NIMBY, but because there has been lack of community engagement in our council district in terms of placing homeless shelters in our neighborhoods. Our group inquired about the status of a former hotel at 231 Grand Street, and Councilmember Marte's office responded on August 2nd with the following. We have not been informed about any activity at 231 Grand Street in regards to providing housing for immigrants. As you have heard earlier this year, 231 Grand Street is no longer going to be moving forward as a shelter. It is currently not being used as a hotel, so it is not even possible for people to stay there. I strongly hope that there will be public engagement when hotels in our community are used for asylum seekers and homeless individuals. We must all act together and provide a welcoming environment for our homeless individuals and asylum seekers, but also at the same time, we need to be respectful of the quality of life that our neighbors have created. They live, work, and build the community that they're living in, and they deserve a voice in that discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chair Ayala and members of the Committee on General Welfare. My name is Yesenia Mata, Executive Director of La Colmena, an immigrant rights center committed to empowering the immigrant community on Staten Island. I am also a commissioner of the New York City's Racial Justice Commission. Thank you for holding this hearing at a time when asylum seekers are searching for opportunities and a better life in all 5 boroughs, including on Staten Island. At La Colmena, we are helping asylum seekers from Venezuela and other parts of South America. For those who will call Staten Island their home, our Day Labor Center is there to connect them to essentials, including food, and with free workforce training, such as SST, OSHA, carpentry, and welding classes, and most importantly, a community. For those who were forcibly bused to New York City by Texas far-right governor, we will help them connect with their families in other states. La Colmena will step up, as it has done time and again, to work alongside the NYCC Council to address the needs being highlighted at this hearing. We are doing our part because we know the City of New York can't do this alone. The Council has been a critical ally to La Colmena. Without your support, hundreds of families would not be receiving the important, culturally competent services our immigrant communities in Staten Island need. We provide these services despite receiving constant threats against our community, including vans with Trump flags, parking in front of our center with the aim of intimidating us. But La Colmena will continue to persevere as long as our families and community members need us. And right now, our community needs us more than ever. Considering all these challenges and the growing needs of our immigrant families in Staten Island, La Colmena's funding is at risk, as there is an effort by some to defund our center and leave us out of the NYC fiscal year 2023 budget. During the pandemic, La Colmena was the only immigrant rights center on Staten Island to keep its physical doors open to support essential workers and families. We distributed 6,000 meals to those who had lost their incomes, gave out more than $1 million in emergency cash assistance, counted our immigrant neighbors during the 2020 census, and empowered day laborers to fight for their safety and wages. Thus, we ask you, Chair Ayala, Speaker Adams, council members, for your support to include La Colmena in the Day Labor Workforce Initiative in order to receive our funding of $615,000 to fight against Texas' inhumane political stunt that is putting innocent lives at risk, and to push back against the hostile climate faced by those we serve. On behalf of my membership and those I come here in representation of, I urge the City Council to continue to support organizations like La Colmena. Thank you, Chair Ayala, for giving me time to testify.
Thank you. I have a question for you regarding the Venezuelan Council. You mentioned that they've been very, well, that the council's been helpful. I'm assuming that that's the Venezuelan Council? This is for Yesenia, I think you mentioned.
Chair Ayala, La Colmena works very closely with day laborers and immigrant families in Staten Island. Every day we see many people from South America, including Venezuela, that come to our day labor centers to seek resources and to receive the workforce development training that they need. As mentioned, we provide culturally competent services such as SST, OSHA, welding, carpentry, and English classes, so they know that as soon as they step in La Colmena, they are able to join the workforce and provide for their families. And as mentioned, most importantly, we provide them with a community and protection.
Thank you.
Quick thing, I'm volunteering. Let's go get them. Let's get some plane tickets and bring them on over. That's a rough bus ride, so let's get them some plane tickets. If Mr. Governor want to play, let's play. This is what we do in New York. We take care of people.
Thank you.
Thank you to this entire panel for your testimony. We're now going to move back to virtual testimony. For virtual testimony, in the following order, we will have Molly Cohen, Sarah Newman, Jackie Wong, Sean Hill, and Rachel Miller Bradshaw. Beginning now with Molly Cohen.
Time starts now.
Good afternoon. My name is Molly Cohen, and I am a senior supervising attorney at the Urban Justice Center Sex Workers Project. My organization provides direct legal services to immigrants who have sex work experience across the spectrum of choice, circumstance, and coercion. The vast majority of our clients are survivors of violence, human trafficking, and the majority identify as LGBTQ. We represent many recently arrived asylum seekers in their immigration cases, and I am here to testify regarding the realities that sex worker asylum seekers face when navigating the New York City shelter system, as well as recommendations for vital improvements. Our clients arrive in New York in the immediate aftermath of having escaped violent persecution in their home countries. The stakes of fighting for asylum here, I can personally testify as an immigration attorney, are truly life and death. The unhoused LGBTQ asylum seekers that we represent at the Sex Workers Project are pushed to the fringes of the formal economy without the prospect of work authorization until at least a year after applying for asylum. Our clients turn to sex work for many reasons, and they too deserve safety, dignity, support, and self-determination, especially when navigating the shelter system. Our asylum-seeking clients currently living in the shelters report many practical logistical frustrations, as well as serious safety concerns. Every day, they tell us about feeling unable to disclose sex work involvement or safely work when navigating strict curfews, sex work stigma, and a lack of inclusivity or safe spaces for LGBTQ individuals. They report the extreme difficulty in getting NYC IDs, receiving mail, and accessing the benefits and healthcare needed to survive. For example, one of the many clients that I'm currently representing is a recently arrived transgender woman from Jamaica, who I'm representing in an asylum case with the New York Immigration Court. She currently lives in a shelter in the Bronx. She's HIV positive and her passport was confiscated, like many others, by Customs and Border Patrol at the border. She's simultaneously trying to access HACA benefits, HIV and gender-affirming health care, and obtain a New York City ID while preparing for an adversarial asylum hearing where she must recount the most traumatic experiences of her life. The Sex Workers Project recommends increasing sex worker and LGBTQ sensitive resources directly available at NYC shelters, especially by providing NYCID and HRA benefits enrollment coordinators and social workers on site to connect asylum seekers with the vitally needed resources in the most direct and impactful way possible. As immigration practitioners, we are here every step of the way, zealously representing clients in a very adversarial system to fight for safety and security in the United States. But there's so much more that's needed, and this is where the city can really step in a vital and transformative way. Thank you all so much for your time.
Thank you, Molly, for your testimony. We'll now move to Sarah Newman for testimony. Over now to Sarah.
Time start now.
Thank you. Thank you to Chair Ayala and to the members of the General Welfare Committee for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Sarah Newman, and I'm the Director of Organizing for the Open Hearts Initiative. OHI supports communities across New York City who welcome homeless neighbors and advocate for housing justice in our own backyards. And what I want to emphasize today is the importance of welcoming all neighbors, regardless of housing status, regardless of when they arrived here, and the role that every community in New York City has to play in doing so. As new shelters open up in your districts, you will likely hear from some constituents who say that they don't want them. They may ask for additional community engagement before these emergency shelters open, simply because the new neighbors moving into these sites are experiencing homelessness, even though no one asks for veto power when new tenants move into a regular building. But here's what we know. People experiencing homelessness are just like any other neighbor. They are also your constituents. By welcoming homeless neighbors with warmth and empathy, we can build the strong community bonds that keep us all safe and help our neighborhoods thrive. Our chapters and affiliated groups across the city represent hundreds of housed New Yorkers who stand in solidarity with and organize alongside homeless neighbors. You have many constituents who want to welcome and support homeless neighbors, and we're ready to work together to do so. One powerful step that you can take as a council member is connecting with shelter residents themselves, finding out what they need and using your platform to make sure those needs are met. Advocating alongside your homeless constituents is always important, and it's especially crucial right now. One very clear need that we're hearing about from longtime residents and more recent arrivals, and that so many people have testified about today, is the need to make it easier for people to exit shelter into permanent housing. Right now, the average length of stay in shelter is over 500 days. No one should have to stay in a shelter for that long, and immigration status can be an additional hurdle in accessing housing, as folks have said today. The city must expedite this process by making sure that every shelter, whether it's serving asylum seekers or serving longtime residents, has a dedicated housing specialist to help people secure housing, and by streamlining processes for vouchers like city FEPs. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, for your testimony. I'll now move to Jackie Wong for testimony. Over to Jackie Wong.
Time starts
Thank
now.
you. Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Jackie Wong. I'm a director at the Greater Chinatown Civic Coalition. We hear a lot today from service agencies. I want to talk about perspectives from communities. First, I want to discuss DHS homeless data. As Mayor Adams' housing blueprint points out, DHS only counts homeless clients within its own system and excludes services funded by other agencies such as HPD, DYCD, and HRA. This practice not only reduces transparency, but also makes progress difficult to track. City Council is considering a bill that would require DHS to publicize the true numbers of people staying in all shelters. We request the government to take one more step, create a digital map that would will show shelter and homeless statistics throughout New York City. The map should include a 0.5-mile radius around all shelter sites and indicate all community district boundaries. As Commissioner Jenkins mentioned before, some areas of the city are oversaturated and some areas are under. The availability of accurate data will support good planning and afford the public to see that the city upholds the intent of fair share throughout 5 boroughs and ensure that no communities, regardless of demographics or socioeconomic standings, is overburdened with shelters. That's how we can eliminate NIMBYism, as the speaker brought up earlier. Thirdly, Chinatown already has 6 shelters in the very condensed area, but DHS is still pushing 2 more shelters into our neighborhood and converting a family shelter to adult only. At the same time, they closed the only shelter in Faidai Seaport Battery Park City in June, leaving the wealthier part of Lower Manhattan with no shelters at all, while pushing a total of 8 shelters in the poorer Chinatown area. DHS must explain the rationale to the public. We have a very old senior immigration population in Chinatown who does not speak English at all. There have been numerous attacks and harassment against them by individuals who are mentally ill during the pandemic, and it shows no sign of slowing down. Many seniors rather go hungry than go get grocery because they don't want to get hurt. Placing a disproportionately high number of single-man shelters in Chinatown not only is a fair share issue, but also a life-threatening risk to the most vulnerable seniors. This is not based on fear or anecdotes. It's happening. Even NYPD cannot effectively stop this trend. DHS must tell us, how do you ensure the safety of our senior? After placing 3 additional adult-only shelters in Chinatown, we've been pushing DHS to restore a site in our area as a shelter for families with children. It will provide a much-needed service for homeless families to stabilize and children to grow and thrive. DHS just ignore us. I'll appreciate if DHS can have genuine conversation with the communities regarding shelter location selections. I also asked HRA to fund home-based program. This is really a good program, and speed up the CityFab application to make sure homeless families can get into housing faster. I personally know an application that has been pending for at least 4 months. Lastly, 7 overburdened neighborhoods have requested a meeting with Speaker Adams to discuss how we can all part of the effort to ensure housing for all while building healthy, balanced, and diverse communities. I hope Chairwoman Ayala, maybe you can help us to set up this meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie, for your testimony. I'll now turn to Sean Hill for testimony. Over to Sean Hill.
Time starts now.
Thank you very much. Hello, Deputy Speaker Ayala. It's great to see you. So I want to piggyback on what Jackie was saying, which is to present a community perspective on the issue, and specifically on the issue of the oversaturation of certain communities. And Deputy Speaker Ayala, I would really like you to kind of think back to your early time as a politician and even as a candidate. And I suspect that you and so many of your colleagues, wherever they fall in the political spectrum, had a core set of values that brought you to this world, to this field, to this job. And I suspect that in many cases, the issue of fairness was one that drove you to public service and to wanting to serve your community. The Greater Harlem Coalition, of which I'm one of the co-founders, wants to ask you to once again center the idea of fairness and to apply it to the distribution of shelter facilities in New York City. We ask this simply because it is the right thing to do, and also because you and New York City does this every single day with other key parts of the city's social infrastructure. Think about the distribution of libraries. Think about the distribution of police stations and fire stations. And think about the distribution of schools. In all these cases, New York City has funded and supported an equitable distribution of these facilities because we know that a tragic and unjust result would occur if we packed, for example, all the fire stations in one neighborhood, or we packed all of the schools in some communities, but not others. Shelters, as many of the speakers today have said, care for, support, and hopefully transition some of the most vulnerable individuals in our society, in our community. But by packing these into communities that are already oversaturated, the Department of Homeless Services both ignores the City Council's doctrine of fair share and is exemplifying an egregious model of poor planning that you probably would not tolerate if the Department of Education said we're going to pack even more schools into this in this particular neighborhood. So our coalition is asking you simply this, as council members and also for you, Deputy Speaker, that we ask that you demand fairness. We ask that you demand DHS and the city treat all communities equitably. We ask you to renew your commitment to justice and your commitment to equity. Shelter oversaturation must end, and all New York neighborhoods must take their fair share. Thank you for your time.
I would like to address that only because it was specifically addressed to me. In regards to the fair share issue, I don't think that there's much disagreement. I think that all communities should be looked at individually, right? And that the needs, have to match the resources. I get that. However, what drove me to government was also, in large part, my own personal experiences, and part of those experiences included being in shelter twice. And in my time in shelter, it never dawned on me that individuals that lived in the community where I was seeking shelter looked at me as a burden. And that troubles me. I think that the language that we use sometimes to describe the situation is blatantly, disrespectful, and sometimes borders on racist. And that I will not tolerate. I think that the city, communities that are bearing the bigger burden deserve to be compensated as such. But for the most part, and I speak as a member who has, a serious oversaturation issues, for not that it may not necessarily all be related to homeless services. That I want, I want the community to understand that these people are in communities where these are primarily Black and brown people. Many of them don't speak English, and they are in communities where they can communicate, where they can visit with families. They're not there to bother anyone. And for the most part, I would argue that we have a lot more shelters than you think that we do, and you don't even know where they are, because those people are probably not even, in your sphere. Like they're not creating issues in the community. So I get the fair share issue. I respect it. I will do, because I do, again, I see that there are issues, but I really want to be very careful with the way that we address the situation, because it can be very insensitive sometimes. And I'm sure that that's not the way that anyone here intends it to come across. So thank you so much for your testimony today.
Thank you.
I'm now going to call on Rachel Miller Bradshaw. Over to Rachel.
So hello, council, and condolences, Deborah Ayala. So my name is Rachel Miller Bradshaw, and I was recently elected female state committee of the 78th Assembly. So in my capacity, I am representing the Fordham Road area as an elected and also a board member of Fordham Hill Owners Corporation. Bronx, even though it's one of the smaller boroughs, has the highest number of shelters. For lack of a more politically correct word, it's become a dumping ground to address the state's homeless epidemic. While Staten Island only has one shelter, and Queens is second as far as the least shelters. I'm a shareholder in Fordham Hill Owners Corporation, and in 2017, a BRC 200-man shelter was placed near us at 233 Landing Road with no community engagement. And even though Fordham Hill Owners Corporation shareholders are the highest grossing taxpayers in the area, DHS and BRC actually were quite disengaging until we got the media involved, and then they were forced to engage the community. Just this year, DHS assisted Acacia and actually sneaking a men's bin stabilization shelter right at 2287 University Place, and only went to the community board the same month that it was about to open, when they're supposed to give a 30-day notice to the community board. Now, Fordham Hill Owners Corporation is boxed in by 4 shelters. Fordham Hill Board has worked to improve the quality of life and property of value of our minority shareholders. We're the largest minority majority privately owned cooperative in the neighborhood. And we are now having an issue with homeless men congregating on church steps, near schools, and in our public parks. Communities of colors are meant to bear the brunt of this issue, spreading the ideology that the majority of New York homeless look like us, which you just said, Deputy Ayala. While this issue should be a fair share spread among all the communities in New York State. But we have to also look at it this way. If all the communities of color bear the brunt of this homeless epidemic that we have, we can't bury these communities in abject poverty and expect the communities to emerge. So we have to kind of think of this. And the problem in New York City's Human Services Administration and Department of Social Services, Administration for Children's Services, and the Department of Homeless Services, and all the charitable institutions, is that none of them are actually speaking to each other. They don't talk to each other effectively. Plus the nonprofit and private section don't either, just to make their numbers. Therefore, poverty and homeless getting worse, and the need for more shelters now that the mayor wants emergency shelters for migrants throughout New York City, actually putting those that are residents and citizens here behind in housing. So, you know, I think that we definitely do need to actually think of more ways to handle the homeless epidemic in New York State. Maybe we should reconsider New York State being a right to housing. We're the only state in the country that's this way. But also we need to definitely address the overburdening of shelters in communities of color, because communities of color have had enough, especially in the Bronx. And we fear that we have now taken on our responsibility as far as the homeless epidemic in New York State, in New York City in particular. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to this entire panel for your testimony. At this time, we do not have any other witnesses that we see are scheduled to testify. However, if we've inadvertently missed anyone here physically in City Hall right now to testify, if not, if there's anyone on Zoom who we have inadvertently missed, if you could please use the Zoom raise hand function. Seeing none, I will turn it now back over to Deputy Speaker Ayala to close out our hearing.
Thank you all for coming, and this hearing is adjourned.